It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on this Thursday. Already Thursday,
yeah,
November 14th. Good morning. We're off and running, Bill. I can only imagine what went through your head as the Matt Gaetz announcement came across the line.
I thought it was The Onion. It took me almost 3 times to read it to go, wait, he's serious? He's serious on this? I don't think he's serious. I think, and we got some audio we can play later, that I think Fetterman's right. I think this is an opening play. I don't think he's serious about this, but I'm surprised that Gaetz has already resigned because what are your betting odds on him getting confirmed? Because what would you think? What are the odds?
That's a really good question because it's going to come down to, right, he's got to get confirmed with, is it 51? He just needs 51 in order to do that out of the Senate. And so you could have a handful of Republicans defect and still do it.
He is, from what I've read, he is one of the most disliked representatives in Congress. He does not have a lot of friends. He has made a ton of enemies. People in his own party dislike him deeply. He's one of the reasons we had the flip in the speakership. He's one of the reasons that happened. And we went, so many days not figuring out whether or not we can get Mike Johnson. He's part of that. So there's a lot of hurt feelings on Congress directed towards him. And he spent a lot of time being more concerned about what was going on here on the cell phone and the tickety talks and the Twitters than moving legislation and rowing towards where his party wanted to go. I'm real curious about this one. This one to me feels more like an appetizer where do you want this steaming pile of crap sandwich, and then when you offer up the second option, it doesn't taste as bad. That's what I feel this is. But I don't know why Matt Gaetz resigned unless it has anything connected to the ethics investigation paperwork that's coming out soon.
Yeah,
because that could be serious. That could be, and you think that's not going to play into his confirmation hearing? You think Kavanaugh,
that will absolutely play into it. But
you think Kavanaugh was a circus? Oh, just wait. Grab the popcorn. This one's going to be crazy because they have a guy that is a good friend of Matt Gaetz that was charged by the Justice Department, is going to be serving time, and says he did all the dirty stuff I did too. You think that testimony's not showing up? Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting.
I did find it interesting. I spent some time reading on that the DOJ did not charge him.
No, sure didn't. But guess what? Doesn't mean it's not going to be read in the confirmation testimonies. That doesn't matter. Because remember,
which is kind of crazy because they bring up just random wild stuff.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we're doing now. But but the issue being that he was investigated for it and everything else. And so that's the idea of, this is the funny part, is the person that had been investigated by the Department of Justice now for doing something awful. Remember, he's the one guy that voted against the law about human trafficking. One dude voted against it, and it's him. And then that's what he's accused of through the Department of Justice, and then he's going to run the Department of Justice. Again, nothing has been proven. It has not gone to court. That's okay. But just in the court of public opinion, how do you think that's going to play in the larger media? You know how this is going to go. Again, grab the popcorn. This could be wild.
This is going to be wild. And there's a few different angles you can go on this. Okay. So to your point, and if you've read The Art of the Deal, this is how Donald Trump thinks, right? For him, all of life is negotiations. And so he can kind of press the boundaries on a particular issue. And then, as you brought up, when he does that, he comes with somebody else. All of a sudden, they seem a lot better than his initial salvo. But the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that Donald Trump may really want this. And
that's frightening.
And if it is that, what Donald Trump is attempting to do, and you can argue if it's going to be effective or not, is that he really is taking a bat to the way things work in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, things like, competency, ability, experience, all that stuff that seems to be important. We don't need that anymore because Gaetz.
But
Gaetz
the way that's been done,
coffee. But Gaetz has practiced law for maybe a cup of coffee. He has no background, and you're putting him in front of the Department of Justice. I mean, think about all the stuff that was said about Kamala and her getting to DA and her getting to AG, and does she have the talent? Dude barely practiced law, and you're making him AG. Really? That's fascinating.
And the response to that is all of the quote experts, all those that have, have the right degrees, have the right experience, have made the Department of Justice and our legal efforts from the federal government so swampy, so corrupt, so broken that, we're absolutely going to put in a guy that just drives the entire machine crazy. And you're going to deal with it.
We're going to put somebody in charge that doesn't know what they're doing. That's going to work really, really well. But the idea is, in order to fix the system, we need to bring in somebody that doesn't know what's going on. Now, that seems like a wonderful idea.
Bill, I'm not
going to work out great.
Bill, I'm not going to let you speak ill of Pete Buttigieg.
Again, I didn't think Buttigieg was good as far as transportation secretary. That was a placeholder. But I'm just saying, transportation secretary versus AG, those are degrees of difference based on stupidity. This would be like putting Buttigieg in as the AG. A dude that has never practiced law and said he's now going to be the attorney general. Would you go, well, seems normal? And if the Democrats came and said, because we need to break down the system inside the Department of Justice, because of all the conservatives that are there that are coming after the Democrats, that's what we need to do. And you'd say, oh, seems reasonable to put Buttigieg in charge.
Joan from Lakewood wants to remind you that we are now unburdened by what has been.
Yeah. I know things like experience and qualifications and ability and character, all those things that seemed so important for so long. We are now unburdened. Maybe what we can do is in the future, we can just hold a lottery. We can have a national lottery for cabinet positions, and we can just randomly announce them on a Saturday afternoon and go, and the new Department Secretary of the Interior is Jim Johnson of Michigan. Congratulations, Jim. You are now the Secretary of the Interior. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Just might as well do it by a lottery.
How
everybody
important,
gets to submit their name. Might as well.
In the past, the Attorney General has been, someone very close to the president.
Yeah.
Kennedy picked his brother.
Yep.
Robert F. Kennedy to do that. For Barack Obama, it was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Holder.
And so they become allies in driving the agenda through the federal government. I don't see this pick as that far off that course. I think Donald Trump trusts Matt Gaetz a lot. This is part of the Florida contingency that we've seen Donald Trump, pick at, whether it's Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, now Matt Gaetz. Some of the other picks have come from Florida. He trusts the Florida Republicans. He wants guys, he's willing to sacrifice, quote, competency on, whether or not you have a Harvard law degree for somebody you can trust. He thinks that's more important.
Done the job. Have any experience doing the job. That seems irrelevant. This, to me, this is what it is, honestly. This is MAGA affirmative action. It's exactly what this is. This is MAGA affirmative action. All the complaints about, wait, how come we're putting people in these positions because they fit this profile rather than them being qualified? For years, the complaint was, we're elevating people that are unqualified based on these types of these things that we're going to measure, and they're going to put them into positions, and they're not qualified. We need to make sure we have the best and the most qualified people, because wasn't that the idea that we shouldn't be doing that? And now with MAGA, it's a loyalty test. Ability, character, experience mean nothing as long as you bend the knee and announce fealty to Donald Trump, the God King. Then you're in the cabinet. That's where we are.
I'm not going to let you talk so ill of Phil Weiser either.
He had to win an election. Gaetz doesn't have to, as far as the appointment. In fact, he doesn't even have to theoretically get confirmed, because Donald Trump is even flexing muscle so far, saying, I'll just do it in recess appointments. That's going to go well. That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, he just doesn't care. It's amazing.
That's what I told you before the election.
It is amazing.
That he views Congress and the courts as an impediment. He doesn't think that we need to have
presidents look at that.
I don't know.
But he's just driving for it.
He doesn't believe that we need three branches of government. He thinks it is a bug, not a feature. He doesn't believe that the country was set up properly.
Oh,
he
Bill,
thinks they
and
get
there
this
you
way.
go, going off on FDR all over again, too.
Nope, not at all. I'm talking about the big guy that we just elected. And you know that. Because, again, we're running a MAGA affirmative action. So, you know, it's good
goodness.
It's good that Gates is finally an affirmative action appointee. That's
Bill,
going to be wonderful.
We couldn't even get the show going, and then we still have news to get to.
We do. This will be a fun day.
Coming up. All right. First news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. Good to talk to you. 29 and clear outside in Denver. It's going to be a beautiful sunrise. I can tell just looking out there right now. Expecting a high of 59 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story. DJT joining in to sing God Bless America with a professional singer last night. Is beautiful, and Elon Musk on hand as well. Trump announced the nomination of Florida Republican Matt Gaetz for U.S. Attorney General. He will be confirmed, or will he? Will there be a recess appointment process, or will it matter? Who knows? It's a controversial pick because partially of this.
Why is it that the women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions? Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
Ouch. And for pushing out Kevin McCarthy, the establishment didn't like that. But he grilled and exposed Merrick Garland over the lawfare in the Judge Mersham trial in New York.
So Pomerantz writes this book, which I'm sure you're aware of, where he says, we put together the legal eagles to get Trump. We got all these folks together and we assembled them for that purpose. And so when we on the Judiciary Committee think about attacks on the judicial process, our concern is that the facts and the law aren't being followed. A target is acquired here, Trump, and then you assemble the legal talent from DOJ, Mr. Pomerantz, and you bring everybody in to get him. And meanwhile, the judge is making money on it. The judge is making money on it, or the judge's family's making money on it for stuff that you yourself wouldn't do. You know, no one's going to buy this. No one's going to believe it. It's going to create great disruption. And I am saddened by it because, like you, I have given my life to the law. I care deeply about the law. And I think that the lawfare we've seen against President Trump will do great damage well beyond our time in public service.
Stay tuned. Tulsi Gabbard named Director of National Intelligence, and DJT at the White House on Wednesday met with Sleepy Joe for about 2 hours. Both spoke of a peaceful transition of power and shook hands.
Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So good. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough. And it's, in many cases, not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today. And I appreciate very much a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get. And I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
And it's a little too quiet after the election, and Roger Stone knows something's brewing with the lefties.
That's what I think is going on today. Anyone who thinks that Barack Obama and his minions are not somewhere in a compound planning some diabolical plot to thwart the will of the people, well, then they haven't been paying attention and they didn't see what they put this president through. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to destroy his reputation. They tried to incarcerate him. They tried to keep him off the ballot in all 50 states. These are people who will do anything whatsoever to cling to power. And therefore, we cannot rest. We must remain vigilant. The president is well aware of this, I assure you.
2 Denver firefighters are recovering after suffering injuries in a 2-alarm fire last night. The fire was reported just before 10 o'clock in the basement of a home near 53rd Avenue and Orland Street in Green Valley Ranch. Crews ran into heavy smoke and fire when they arrived on the scene. The cause is under investigation. Governor Polis announced he is co-chairing a state-level coalition with Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois to protect institutions of American democracy ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's second term. According to their website, governors safeguarding democracy will leverage the collective strength, experience, and institutional knowledge to craft policies and laws to protect the rule of law. Polis said in a statement that protecting democracy has never been more relevant or important. So why didn't the Democrats vote or have a primary to select their presidential candidate? That would be democracy. She was installed. That is very interesting. A Pueblo-based cannabis company will pay $225,000, a fine, after misrepresenting the source of their products, according to the AG's office. Bees Knees CBDs. Wow, I didn't realize the name of that one. Bees Knees CBDs, mislabeled products as organic, lied about supporting conservation groups, and had no age verification system. The company could pay more than $490,000 if they fail to comply with terms of the settlement. News brought to you by the Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Avs over the Kings 4-2 for their third straight victory last night. It's 27 in Parker, 26 in North Glen, 29 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Nice November weather for Denver in the Front Range for the next few days. Sunny to partly sunny, seasonal temperatures in the 50s to near 60 today and tomorrow. Little bit cooler on the lower end of the 50s for the weekend. For today and Friday, dry. Sunny to partly sunny, a few more clouds, a little breezy, but still dry for Saturday into Sunday. Showers late Monday. Weather is sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We kicked it off right away.
Yeah, did we ever? That was fun.
And I just asked a very simple question to Bill. So did you see Matt Gaetz was nominated as Attorney General?
That's all it takes.
Well, to provide some comment and coverage, not only on that pick, but the vote in the Senate yesterday to make John Thune the majority leader. And then the other picks that are coming through is Rory O'Neill. He's regular on this show and NBC News Radio National Correspondent. Good morning, Rory.
Hey, good morning. Happy Thursday, guys.
Well, you know, we just went from one big week to another big week, and Trump is just getting these picks out and new leadership in the Senate for the first time in 20 years on the Republican side. So give us some oversight on all this.
Yeah, and we're trying to read into the tea leaves here. The fact that the Republican senators behind closed doors chose John Thune of South Dakota to be their leader over Rick Scott, who sort of had the wink and the nod and the support of the MAGA crowd. Is that the reason that then hours later, the president announced that Tulsi Gabbard and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz would be part of his administration, with Gaetz his pick to be the AG?
And that one seems to be the most controversial. There was some critique around Tulsi Gabbard and some of her comments in the past with Syria and Russia and that type of stuff. But Matt Gaetz, I mean, that one even has some Republican senators like Lindsey Graham vocally speaking out against it.
Right. And that's a concern, obviously, for the confirmation hearing. But we're seeing a similar thread here that these are all popular commentators on channels like Fox News. But do they have the credentials? Do they have the experience to manage these things? From Pete Hegseth at the Defense Department, yes, he's a soldier, and he's certainly expressed his opinions while on Fox News. But can he manage a $1 trillion organization with 2 million people? Does he know how to buy a nuclear submarine? That's sort of the job, not necessarily, the fact that you make great 8-second sound bites on TV. And same with Matt Gaetz. We know he stirs the pot, but has he ever managed an agency like this before? Anything remotely this size, responsible for everything from the FBI to a host of different services?
How much, and by the way, we're talking to Rory O'Neill, who's the NBC News Radio National Correspondent. How much does the Florida contingency come into this? Because if you look at it, I think Mike Waltz is from Florida as well, but Matt Gaetz, Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, it seems like that President Trump feels very comfortable with the Republican leadership coming out of Florida and wants to carry them into Washington, D.C. with him.
Yeah, and I'm in Florida, so how about that? It's remarkable that it is this Florida list, but Donald Trump is now and has been for the past few years a Floridian, and these are all people who have worked with Trump for a while and have all been on the trail with him, and they've all shown themselves to be faithful to the future president in a lot of TV appearances. So again, a lot of the picks all seem to be soundbite machines. I think literally Matt Waltz has been the most frequent guest on Fox News for the past 2 years. That's not a joke. He's the most frequent guest on that network. And again, constantly praising Donald Trump. And that's sort of the payback. Like, if you're loyal to him, he's loyal to you. But the second you're not.
Yeah, knives out. Rory O'Neill, NBC National News Correspondent, joining Jeff and Bill live. Is this possibly Donald Trump doing the art of the deal? And what I'm saying is, with someone like maybe Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, with Gaetz, that may not be necessarily appetizing to those in the department or that they're going to lead, is this an example of, yes, this is crap on a shingle. It's going to taste bad. And if you don't like it, oh, look at this other alternative I'm going to bring out later, and it's going to be easier to swallow because it's not going to taste as bad as the first sandwich I handed you. Is he playing some sort of an art of the deal game where this is just the first salvo in order to make the second pick that can make it through Congress more appetizing to everybody else? Your thoughts?
All right. I would use the checkers to chess analogy rather than blank on a shingle. Let me put that out there.
Darn. Okay, fine.
Is Donald Trump playing chess while the rest are playing checkers? Yeah, good question. In that, look, Matt Gaetz tomorrow was about to have a pretty ugly report come out from the Ethics Committee, we believe, but by resigning yesterday, effective immediately before his confirmation, Gaetz essentially stopped that ethics report from coming out. Now, being here in Florida, we widely expected that Matt Gaetz would be running for governor in 2026, because current Governor Ron DeSantis is term limited and can't run again. So essentially, Gaetz would start campaigning for governor in about a year. Well, by doing it this way, now the House ethics report doesn't come out. Even if he loses in his confirmation, say he drops out of the confirmation, okay, now he's got no job at all. He sits out a year and he's got plenty of dad's money, sits out a year and then runs for governor. And that way, this report never comes out. And this also doesn't show he resigned Congress and didn't run pending an ethics investigation before. So he tends to get the best of both worlds with this. Or was this just a Donald Trump finger in the eye to the senators who voted against his pick to be the majority leader, Rick Scott.
Now, Rory O'Neill, NBC National News Correspondent, what is the feeling like in Florida? Florida's getting a lot of shine from the future president. A lot of people being elevated. Does Florida feel like they're back in the game? They're now getting recognized that they are being, a significant player nationally in politics. Does this play well in the state?
Well, hey, look, in 2000 we had George Bush and his brother was the governor here, right? So long connections, but yeah, I mean, it's significant to have Marco Rubio make the jump to Secretary of State. Not sure how much a Secretary of State helps Florida. And Michael Waltz being, for national intelligence or national security advisor may not necessarily help Florida. But having the president from Florida certainly does help in that, Donald Trump's got a lot of investments in South Florida, in particular with Mar-a-Lago, with Trump National Golf Courses. It's good to, and this is the home of his winter White House. So we expect to see President-elect Trump back here in South Florida quite a bit.
Now, NBC National News Correspondent Rory O'Neill here with Jeff and Bill analyzing the Trump cabinet picks so far. Is there a danger possibly of Trump stepping on the feelings or the toes of either Mike Johnson or now Thune in the Senate by continuing to pull people out of those representative bodies? Because every time he yanks a name out, in theory, he also shrinks the margin of victory needed. He's shrinking the majority. Is there any danger there of some of those people getting a little upset because he's making their job more difficult in the future?
Yeah, Speaker Johnson spoke to that specifically yesterday, saying what just shows how much talent the Republicans have in the House was his way of talking out of it. But he claimed that Florida's system could have a replacement for Gates in place by the first week of January, which that's not true. Because it's going to take a couple of months for if there's a primary. Yes, there will be times when the seats of Gates and Waltz are open. Plus, if the conversation or if the guesses come true, one of the leading candidates to replace Marco Rubio in the Senate would be Republican Congressman Byron Donalds, again, plucking from that Republican majority. Now, yes, they would all be replaced, but March is like the earliest it's going to happen. And you've already missed now the first 100 days of a presidential administration.
Rory O'Neill, NBC National News Correspondent. We got to cut you loose here in a second. Final question. With DeSantis, he's probably going to make some of these regular politics picks. I've been seeing online, there's a move by Floridians. We talked about it yesterday here on the show for Senator Worldwide. Yes, we're talking Pitbull. Is there any truth to the idea that maybe we get Pitbull in Congress? Would DeSantis make that pick? Please tell me yes. Please tell me yes.
I saw Hulk Hogan.
Oh, there we go. He could run wild on the deficit.
Pulling his shirt off, or trying to anyway. Getting harder and harder these days. Gosh, I hope not.
Now you've made me sad. Oh, well. I can always hope, my friend. Rory O'Neill, NBC National News Correspondent. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a great week.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
That was a lot of fun.
That was. I thought about the Hogan thing. That could be fun.
Yeah. It's all a circus.
Yeah, I would tune in for a Hogan press conference just because.
Oh, yeah,
just
sure.
It'd be a promo. Every day I would do that. In fact, okay, this is just, I'm spitballing here just because of Rory's suggestion. Okay. Hulk Hogan press secretary.
Oh my gosh.
That's what we need. That's what we need.
We wouldn't get any answers to any actual questions, but it would be amazing.
Not at all.
I'm not sure we get that many answers to questions now.
Wouldn't that be the perfect spokesperson for the Trump administration? Hulk Hogan. Oh, and deputy press secretary is Kid Rock. Those are the two. That's it. Those are my picks. Has
Kid Rock sobered up, or is he still?
He hasn't been sober for decades.
I know. Some of those guys eventually get it and sober up.
Yeah, no, not at all.
All right. Well, here's a question I got. I was discussing with the fetching Nicole yesterday.
Yeah.
There's two people. Well, no. Now I think about it. There's three. There's three people from Colorado politics that could end up in administration jobs.
Oh, who are those?
Lauren Boebert, Heidi Canal, and Dave Williams.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Do you think they would take the jobs? I think Heidi would take an administration job. I think Dave would take an administration job.
Yeah.
But a lot of discussion over whether or not Lauren would.
Yeah. If I was whispering in Lauren's ear and I was telling her and giving her advice, I would avoid it. I would step out of the administration job because I think the arc of her political career is longer if she stays in Congress.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that those opportunities, if she continues to show up as well as she does, those opportunities will occur later on down the road and could be much more significant. And I would say that she could put herself in a position to have a much higher profile administration role than what she could be offered right now. So I would say that, rather than being offered something that I would guess would be maybe a B-level appointment, she could be shooting for an A here in, 10 years or so. Yeah.
I asked her one time, like, kind of who are some of her best friends there in Congress? I think I was asking, because you remember she had some health issues.
Yep. Yeah.
I think she had a blood clot. And I was like, are you getting exercise? You're working out?
Yeah.
And she said that I think her best friend, or someone at least that she spends a lot of time with, is Ginger Gates, Matt's wife.
Oh, boy.
So if Matt is going attorney general, if he gets attorney general, which is not totally off the table, there's a close friendship there.
Oh, I like Lauren a lot. Hitching her wagon to the Gates catastrophe would be a nightmare scenario, in my opinion.
I don't know if it's such a catastrophe.
Oh, it is.
I don't know if it's such a catastrophe.
Complete catastrophe.
He could very well be the next attorney general. I feel like this is everybody. This is like what happened when Trump announced. I feel like I'm back in the Twilight Zone where it's like,
I agree.
Donald Trump? No way. He'll never be president. I'm listening to George Clooney going, he'll never be president. This will never happen. The guy's been elected twice.
Yeah.
And, I'm just saying.
Yeah. And again, okay.
The MAGA movement was pretty excited about Gates last night.
Don't tell me that. Okay. So again, I still think this is MAGA affirmative action. This is the idea that we are going to put people in that are more loyal than competent or qualified or have the ability to do the job. It's first and foremost a loyalty test, which doesn't really disprove the idea of this being a cult, but I don't want it to go that direction right now. What I'm curious about in this kind of appointment is, does this mean that things like, the qualities of, ability and character just simply don't matter, that it is a loyalty test? Because I think that in many ways, Gates, Tulsi Gabbard, and Hegseth, but mostly Gates, is a litmus test for MAGA support for Donald Trump. I am partly convinced that Trump is putting Gates out there as a bellwether, as an idea of, let's see if you guys really support me. Let's see who is willing to push back on me early on, so I can early on have an enemies list on the GOP side. I already hate all the Democrats. We according to him, they're all communist, Marxists, leftists, fascists, which doesn't make any sense, but they're all trying to destroy the America and then drinking the baby's blood and stuff and the pizza joint. So that's where we are with him on that, on the Democrats. So on the Republicans, is he using something like Hegseth and Tulsi, and especially Gates, as a temperature? Is he seeing who is going to fall in line? I mean, Senator Football the other day said, if anybody challenges Gates, they're going to be primaried. Great job, Tommy. That's wonderful leadership for you. That's going to be one.
So I'll tell you what I think's happening.
Yeah.
And I would love to get to the phone calls and texts here. Donald Trump went with the establishment Republican picks last time. The Rex Tillers, the William Barrs, and he hated it. He felt like he couldn't get his agenda through. He was constantly infighting with his own team. He is not going to make that mistake twice. And yeah, you could go, well, he's going way on the side of loyalty over competency. And I would say, yeah. After what happened to him during his last term, he has swung the pendulum back on that side. And there's different personality profiles out there. And I think the one that is the most accurate is what's called the Enneagram personality test.
Yeah.
And I am an Enneagram 8. Donald Trump is an Enneagram 8. We have the same type of personality. So I get the value of loyalty, because it's like that we're of the same personalities that want to drive radical change. Like, we are moving forward. I don't care how offended you are. I don't care. We are breaking things and moving forward. Hence kind of this show, right? That's why I love this show. We are not a standard conservative talk radio show.
Not even close. Yeah.
We're going to move forward. And in order to achieve that, you have to have a team you can trust. And I just see that's what Donald Trump's doing. But let's get to your phone calls and texts. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Senator John Thune has won the secret election conducted by Senate Republicans to become the upper chamber's next majority leader. Thune is now a key partner on Capitol Hill to President Donald Trump. However, many online are voicing their concerns over this election, still insisting Rick Scott should have been chosen, but hoping the Republican from South Dakota will prove everyone wrong. And he's off to a good start. Thune has reportedly already jumped on a phone call with Trump, then said he's excited to get to work implementing the president's agenda.
We will do everything we can to process his noms quickly, get them installed in their position so they can begin to implement his agenda. We expect a level of cooperation from the Democrats.
A man who worked for the U.S. government has been charged with leaking classified information assessing Israel's earlier plans to attack Iran. That's according to court papers filed. The man, identified as Asif William Rahman, was arrested by the FBI this week in Cambodia and was set to make his first court appearance in Guam. It's not immediately clear which federal agency employed him. The documents noted that Israel was still moving military assets in place to conduct a military strike in response to Iran's blistering ballistic missile attack on October 1st. Israel carried out a retaliatory attack on multiple sites in Iran in late October. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
So welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. What do you think of these cabinet picks? Holy cow. Here we go. Susie Wiles, White House Chief of Staff. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. Matt Gaetz, Attorney General. Here's John Fetterman. Here's Fetterman on Gaetz.
I mean, I would describe it as God tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
Yeah, I'm kind of with him on that one.
I probably disagree with 90% of his policies, but John Fetterman is really fun.
Oh, he is. Yeah. The thing is, he understands. For me, I appreciate him as a politician because he perfectly represents his constituency.
Yeah, right.
What comes out of his mouth and his behavior is exactly the dude that he's representing in his district. And that's what I appreciate, is that he's giving voice in much ways that, and I know a lot of people, and again, throw rocks at friend of the show, Lauren Boebert. I think she is a perfect representative of her constituency. I think she gives voice to a lot of what they do. And I don't think we see that a lot. Adam Schiff, I think, is horrible at it. I think Chuck Schumer is awful at it. I think there are a series of Democrats. Ilhan Omar,
Jason Crow.
Yes, absolutely.
He's
Jason
terrible
Crow's wonderful.
at it.
Yeah, he's terrible at as giving voice to the concerns of his constituency. Because remember, we're going to go back and jump in the Wayback Machine just a couple of weeks ago, how he was worried about the language being used around the Venezuelan gang members and the apartment buildings, not the actual impact of the crime that was going on. It was our words. So, yeah, I guess Jason was the kid on the playground when we were in middle school that said, wait, no, those words can't hurt me in addition to the sticks and stones you keep throwing at me. I guess he was that kid. And again, I don't respect that. And I don't respect Ilhan Omar focusing on a very small portion of her constituency. She can, and if she was just giving voice in part to the Muslim community and what she was hearing there in addition to the rest of the constituency, but she seems to hyper-focus on a smaller portion of her constituency. And I think she makes some bad choices with that one. Fetterman, though, Fetterman is the dude. You go into the VFW in his district, there'll be a bunch of dudes in the Carhartt hoodies talking exactly like him. And I respect that. I respect that.
And I think he plays an important role here because he's telling all the Democrats, chill out.
Yes.
We're going to go through a confirmation hearing.
Yeah.
All this is going to come up. Trump is messing with you. And maybe Trump wants him to be the attorney general, maybe not. But like, he's trolling you and getting you all worked up, and you are going right after it. You're buying it hook, line, and sinker.
And here's a contemporary example that I think shows how, and especially those in, I would say, the mainstream and also liberal media, ran around with their hair on fire. The statement that Donald Trump made about Liz Cheney and the 9 rifles pointing at her head.
Yeah.
Now, was that a little bit out of bounds? Yes, I would say it is a little bit out of bounds, but was he calling for Liz Cheney to be shot? No, but he was calling for her to be placed in a situation where she is advocating for other Americans to be placed in, and that would be a soldier and fighting in a war. It was an inelegant analogy. It was a little brutal in how he expressed it, but that's kind of what he does. However, the media reaction to that was bonkers, and it reinforced everything that MAGA feels and sees and hears from that mainstream media, and they did themselves in on that one. And Fetterman is right that everyone losing their minds about Gaetz, they're being trolled in some way, and the response that he's got is yes, he should do exactly what we're doing here. This is MAGA affirmative action. You're trying to appoint somebody that is not qualified for the job. Is this really what you're going to do with the best and brightest people? Because that's what he promised us in the last cycle, was the best and brightest. Matt Gaetz, best and brightest. If you're gonna ask for resumes submitted to you to run the DOJ, Gaetz is the dude at the top of the list. Please, I got a bridge for you in New York.
5631 writes, AG Jeff Sessions was a major disaster last go around. Gaetz is unique, unquestionably a loyalist pick. He will force a necessary purge to the corrupt justice system. Tell us what you think. Give us a call. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Tell us what you think about all these picks. Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio, Matt Gaetz would love to hear from you all. Did you know that last year, over 49% of homes listed did not sell with the real estate agent who took the initial listing? This cost home sellers thousands of dollars in low offers and painful holding costs. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams have a track record of selling homes fast and get their home sellers 6.1% more money on average, netting their sellers $30,500 more in their pocket. They do this using their proven proprietary systems and guarantees. So go with the team that doesn't just make empty promises, but can actually provide proof of their experience and a track record of getting homes sold for top dollar. Maybe you're ready to leave the crazy blue trash island of Colorado. Maybe you're ready to downgrade. Maybe you're ready to upgrade. Whatever it might be, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team are ready to help you get that home sold. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team is so confident in the services they provide and the results they can get you that if you're not happy, you can cancel at any time, no cost to you. This is their cancellation promise. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE. hasthebuyers.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's that time of the morning where we give the people what they want, Billy.
Yes, it's that time of the morning where we take our careers in our own tiny little hands. It's something that we call You Choose the News. It's America's...
Little hand Marco.
Yes, exactly. Tiny little Marco. It is America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. I have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find really dumb stories about us humans because it's pretty easy to find a lot of them. And then I give them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show with you. Why? Because nobody in charge has any idea we are this irresponsible with the airwaves. So we appreciate it if you keep this our little secret. Alrighty, here's how it works. We bring in Blake Olson from the newsroom, Jeff Hunt in the studio, and your choices this morning, gentlemen, are as follows. Choose carefully. Headline number 1, Peekaboo, don't see you. Headline number 2, Pick-a-Nick imposter. Headline number 3, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. And headline number 4, just some old dude. Your choice.
Just because I grew up with 2 brothers, I'm going to do this. Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
Yeah, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Iranian women who are resisting wearing the hijab are now going to be given treatment at a specialist mental health clinic because obviously there's something wrong with their lady brains. That's according to a press release in Tehran. There is going to be a new center created. It's going to be for the scientific, and I'm quoting here, the scientific and psychological treatment of removing the hijab, specifically in the teenage generations, young adults, and any of those women seeking social and Islamic justice and identity. Yes, they actually have, the clinic is going to be overseen by Iran's headquarters for enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Ooh, I hope Trump doesn't find out about that. That's going to be a new cabinet position. Okay, but the government is responsible for enforcing strict religious standards all across the country. So yes, they've decided in Iran that if you don't want to wear the thing over you, that there's something wrong with your lady brain. I'm sure this is going to work out well.
Oh,
I know. So many things there. You're like, what the hell are we doing? Okay, Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Peekaboo, don't see you. Pick-a-Nick imposter, or just some old dude.
Peekaboo, don't see you.
Yeah, peekaboo, don't see you. That's what happened recently when Matthew Davies walked into a Dunfermline bank, and this is in England, and tried to rob it. Problem is, he couldn't see what he was doing. See, Matthew walked in one day, 47 years old, had a meat cleaver inside of a pillowcase. While he was standing in line, he pulled out the meat cleaver and put the pillowcase over his head, prepared to rob the bank. He was all ready with his clever disguise, except for one little thing. He totally forgot to cut eye holes in the pillowcase. So when he put it over his head, he couldn't see anything, which meant then when he went to rob the bank, he had to take the pillowcase off his head. So then he was filmed and seen by everybody in the bank, which made it really, really super easy to find him later on and convict him of the crime. Yes, the best part I still think is that he went into the bank. He's already being recorded, and then he pulls out the cleaver and then puts it on his head. And then puts the thing on his head, and you're like, "Wait, shouldn't you put on the disguise before you walk in the bank?" At least that's what they do in the movies. I mean,
don't they have Halloween in this town?
I know. I have no idea. I mean, he would have been
the holes.
He would have been better off doing the Charlie Brown thing with like 17 holes.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm picturing.
Yes, in fact, no holes. And how long do you think he realized when he put it over his head? And he's like, well, crap, I can't see anything. Like, I didn't think this plan all the way through.
That's great.
Yes.
I want to see that video.
Exactly.
Security video.
And final choice this morning, Jeff. Pick-a-Nick imposter or just some old dude?
Just some old dude.
Yeah, it's just some old dude. A sculpture that was bought a number of years ago for just $6 could actually end up selling for more than $3 million because it is a bust of just some old dude. It was made by French sculptor Edmé Bouchardon, and it depicts the landowner of the Scottish estate politician John Gordon. That's important because John Gordon set up the Invergordon Town Council. The town council itself, back in the 19th century, acquired the bust in 1930. They wanted it because he was the founder. They wanted to put it in a special place in Town Hall. Somehow they misplaced it. So for the last couple of decades, it's been propped up keeping a shed door open in an industrial park. They then realized what they had, and they're now going to sell it for $3 million. Just some old dude.
From shed door prop to $3 million.
Yes, exactly.
That just affirms every dad out there who's like, oh, we're going to hold on to this.
Yes, I told you it was worth something. Back to you, sir.
Right. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing to you the hottest conversations and most important discussions on this Thursday, November 14th, that you need as we kick off a whole another day in the greatest country in history. Speaking of that, all these great picks coming for Trump's cabinet and the God-level trolling that John Fetterman talks about Trump doing.
We've entered a MAGA affirmative action. The worm has turned. MAGA is now pro-affirmative action. That's exactly what it is.
And I just will not allow Bill to denigrate these great picks just because they might not be quite as experienced as others.
Yes.
But they have demonstrated loyalty and deserve a seat at the table, just like Pete Buttigieg.
That's a nice one. That is a good one. That is
Phil Weiser, who is not at all qualified to be in the job he is in.
Yeah.
But we're gonna.
But he did have to though beat some loser that couldn't. Oh, sorry. I mean, no. I love you, George. I'm just teasing. I hope he's listening. I was just teasing Brockler. That's it. Just teasing him.
George is never gonna get over that loss.
No, I'm never gonna get over that loss. And I wasn't even running, and it still pisses me off. It still 100% pisses me off.
But it's funny how the left is just up in arms.
Yeah,
they're so unqualified, and I'm sitting here going, "Have you seen how our elections are run in this state?" Jenna Griswold has got to be the least qualified dope out there, and we handed all of our elections to her. So I don't see the left having much to stand on with regards to their complaints about the qualifications of who some of Trump's picks are. But we want to get to you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff and Billy. 30 and sunny this morning in Denver. Expecting a high of 59 today. Going to be a great day. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up.
But Blake, do you think it's 59 degrees in November in Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's higher rates of schizophrenia in Colorado because our weather is so schizophrenic sometimes?
I don't find Colorado weather schizophrenic.
You don't? Like, we bounce all over the place. And
I've lived other places.
Really?
And
I feel like a week ago, it wasn't even a week ago, we had the worst snowstorm in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then today's 59 degrees.
Well, I know,
wonder if that
but
plays with people's personalities. That's all I'm asking.
Maybe.
Does it play with your personality?
No, it doesn't mind because we have sun. If you have sunshine, to me, it just wipes any challenges you have a day earlier or 2 days earlier. It just, blue skies and sunshine. That does it for me. Whether it's 59 degrees, because then it feels like 70 degrees because the sun is out.
Yeah.
Or if it's 90 degrees, there's no humidity here. Our climate is incredible. In fact, I just saw a story a couple of days ago. Once again, this is one of the people live longer in Colorado and parts of California because of the climate. I mean, when you don't have humidity, man, that saves a lot of challenges and problems, not only in the summer, but in the winter as well. Those ice storms, man, and all the problems that occur when it comes to humidity and the winter time. So I would disagree with you on that, but what do I know?
Dude, we are ranked when it comes to adult mental health.
Yeah.
51.
Way down there. Are we 51?
Yeah. 50,
See, I think
got to be
because,
including. Yeah, New Jersey's the worst.
So, yeah, I don't know. I hear that, and you hear it with young people as well. I don't know. It's just, man, most climates. Now, wait a minute. You said 51. So on the negative side,
dude, we're like the lowest.
Oh, the lowest.
I think we can blame all the Californians moving here. They're just bringing it crazy. It's just crazy. It's not on us. It's not on the real Colorado. It's not on Blake. It's not on Jeff. It's not on the listeners. It's not on me. It's on those psychopathic avocado toast eating Californians coming here.
It just caught me off guard. I was sitting there going, man, Friday was such a mess out there, and then Saturday was crazy, and we couldn't even get plowed out of Elizabeth until
I think it has to do with your money.
And then all of a sudden it's 50 degrees. I'm just like,
my goodness. Well, you have to deal with the mud.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing, man. When you deal with my wife and I would talk about this, and I'm like, man, if you don't have a plow, you do not want to be in those situations, because that adds a whole different level of stress.
My wife actually slid into a ditch on Saturday.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Or Sunday, when there was an Amazon truck, because they had plowed our dirt road. And there's a big hill there. And she got over to the side for the Amazon truck to come through. And then she didn't drive off. She just got to the side. And then because it was so muddy, She just slid down.
Yeah, because as soon as you start trying to get, because she's on the crest of the rise, as soon as you start the traction, it's going to erode. That side, you're going to slide down. Yeah, absolutely. That's why you have the houses falling off the edge. See, for me, yes, Colorado weather is somewhat schizophrenic, but it fits right in my little head. That's exactly it. It is perfectly encapsulating how I am. It's the idea of like Friday morning. It's like, oh, it's a bad storm, and then it's not so bad, and then hey, let's go to a concert Friday, and then to get up and shovel snow on Saturday.
I'm looking at this weather.
Head.
We've got like 60 today, and then it's going to be snowing again on Tuesday.
Right.
God,
I hate it for you. I hate it for you. There's no doubt. It's tough. I mean, with the dirt roads and the mud, but man, there's so many other worse places to live. There really is. 95% of the places, maybe 90. Great people though. All right, Rory O'Neill was on.
Yeah, and we're trying to read into the tea leaves here. The fact that the Republican senators behind closed doors chose John Thune of South Dakota to be their leader over Rick Scott, who sort of had the wink and the nod and the support of the MAGA crowd. Is that the reason that the president announced that Tulsi Gabbard and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz would be part of his administration, with Gaetz his pick to be the AG?
So Rory O'Neill, NBC News, talked about DJT announcing the nomination of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Will he be confirmed? Will there be a recess appointment process? Will it matter? O'Neill joined the fellas last hour and curious about experience.
They have the credentials. Do they have the experience to manage these things? From Pete Hegseth at the Defense Department, can he manage a $1 trillion organization with 2 million people? Does he know how to buy a nuclear submarine? And same with Matt Gaetz. We know he stirs the pot, but has he ever managed an agency like this before? Anything remotely this size, responsible for everything from the FBI to a host of different services.
Who knows? Time will tell. But all I know is Ginger Gaetz can sing the national anthem. Wow. That was beautiful. That was at the Capitol, evidently. I saw the video of that. Gaetz is controversial partially because of this.
Why is it that the women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions? Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb.
Is it safe to say that based off of your comments, you're suggesting that these women at these abortion rallies are ugly and overweight?
Yes.
What do you say to people who think that those comments are offensive?
Be offended.
But he did help expose. Man, he didn't flinch on that one.
I wonder if part of all of this is Trump understanding that policy is not just waged behind the scenes in buildings and in meetings, but out on the media. And he wants a guy that's just going to drive his agenda through the attorney general's office out in the media well.
I think so. I mean, the more and more you listen to people, that's what it sounds like. But remember, he did grill Merrick Garland over the lawfare in the Judge Mersham trial in New York.
You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
You make a request. We'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory, that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's a conspiracy theory, that will be evident. But when you say, well, we'll take your request, and then we'll sort of work it through the DOJ's accommodation process, then you're actually advancing the very dangerous conspiracy theory that you're concerned about.
And Tulsi Gabbard named Director of National Intelligence. DJT at the White House on Wednesday. He met with Sleepy Joe for about 2 hours. Both talked about a peaceful transition. Did you see that, Jeff?
Well, can the Democrat listeners, the progressive listeners, the non-Trump voter listeners, help me understand how Joe Biden just welcomed literally Hitler into the White House with a smile on his face.
Shook his hand
and spent 2 hours together and said it was a fine meeting. Yeah. What is happening to America when Joe Biden and the Democrats would allow literally Hitler, Stalin, communist, Marxist, fascist leader into the White House and be nice to him? What is going on?
Incredible. I will say Joe looked the best he ever has.
He looked so happy.
He looked better than he did 6 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, I was like, wow, I can understand it. Here's some of it.
Everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. We're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. It's good. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
His approval rating went up like, 30 points after that? Oh, man. All right. An Arapahoe County jury has found former Aurora officer not guilty on one charge of first-degree assault with a deadly weapon. Douglas Haroon was originally charged with 2 counts last June in relation to an on-duty shooting in December of 2022. The jury is hung, and the second charge of second-degree assault. The district attorney's office says the second count will be tried again in January. 2 Denver firefighters once again are recovering after suffering injuries in a 2-alarm fire last night. The fire was reported just before 10 o'clock in the basement of a home near 53rd Avenue and Orland Street in Green Valley Ranch. Crews ran into heavy smoke and fire when they arrived on the scene. Avs over the Kings 4-2 for their 3rd straight victory. And speaking of the Kings, one of the biggest Kings fans is Dennis Prager, the great Dennis Prager. Prayers out to him. He fell last night, evidently injured his back and hospitalized today. So hoping that he will recover soon. 25 in Castle Rock, 27 in Westminster, 30 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Nice November weather for Denver in the Front Range for the next few days. Sunny to partly sunny. Seasonal temperatures in the 50s to near 60 today and tomorrow. Little bit cooler on the lower end of the 50s for the weekend. For today and Friday, dry. Sunny to partly sunny. A few more clouds, a little breezy, but still dry for Saturday into Sunday. Showers late Monday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, Donald Trump laying out the team he wants to go to battle against the team with in Washington, D.C. What do you think of this team he's putting together? It's quite a lineup. Susie Wiles, White House Chief of Staff, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, Matt Gaetz, Attorney General, Kristi Noem, Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, Elise Stefanik, Ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Huckabee, Ambassador to Israel, Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, John Ratcliffe, CIA Director, Lee Zeldin, Environmental Protection Agency Administration, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, Department of Government Efficiency, and Tom Homan, the new border czar. Holy cow. What a lineup. Would love to hear from you. Let's go to the phone lines. Tony, good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning. I think this is all coming down to, this is really just a loyalty test by Trump to see if he can get the Senate to waive the separation of powers as enumerated in the Constitution and just let him have these recess appointments. He had made the statement, his first request was whoever you appoint as leader of the Senate, they have to be supportive of recess appointments. Tim Scott came out and said, I'll do it. The other two did not. Tim Scott did not even make it through the first round of voting inside the Senate and was eliminated immediately. And the other two guys stood, and Thune obviously won 29-24, I think, against Cornyn. That's telling me that they may not really be willing to waive that key fundamental right of theirs to advise, consent, and reject when necessary. And they probably have a couple good reasons. One, Trump he goes in as a lame duck. Two, all these guys and gals may be thinking they may be running for president in 4 years, and they may be very reluctant to appoint people who are not competent for the position. And I'm not saying that from the standpoint of they don't have experience running an organization that large. Nobody has experience running an organization that large when they go in. But those people, the fear of those people would be like Tulsi Gabbard. In Russia, right, she's referred to as our girl Tulsi. That would be a bit concerning to the FBI. Hegseth, would he use the military against American citizens? And these are the types of fears. And would Gates open up investigations on anybody at the request of the president?
What makes you think Pete Hegseth is going to use the military against American citizens?
That's what Trump wants. And he's picked people who will do what they will do what he wants.
The National Guard when there's riots?
I don't even want to try and go down any individual argument because
right. But Tony, you're the one who said that Pete Hegseth's going to use the military against his own people.
Trump has made the point that he wants to use. You obviously have had to hear about this concern over the last 90 days. His discussion about using the military against American citizens, and the fact that the former lead of the former Secretary of Defense said no, talked him out of using the military against
Tony,
people who are not just rioters, protesters.
Oh, it wasn't against protesters. Do you remember when?
That's what I'm saying.
Tony, do you remember when Trump wanted to use the National Guard to protect the Capitol on January 6th? Would you have been opposed to using the National Guard to do that?
He didn't want to do that. That was never an idea for him.
It was. He said he was gonna call that in. He wanted to call that in. But the larger point is would you
pick people who will do his bidding? That's all.
Would you use the National Guard to protect the Capitol against the rioters on January 6th?
I'm not making an argument. I'm not even going down that path with you. I'm not even, because that's not what this is about.
Tony, this is what it's about. Tony, you came on the show and said that Pete Hegseth is going to use the army against its own people. And I'm asking you, would you have used the National Guard to protect the Capitol on January 6th?
Jeff, you can cut me off, but the fact, it's your show. But the fact is, you've got the former Secretary of Defense, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, all saying he wants to use the military against American citizens, and they had to stop him.
You wouldn't have done that on January 6th.
It doesn't matter that one. I'm not even talking about an individual incident. It's the whole premise that Trump wants people that will do his bidding. And he's trying to see if he can slide them through without recess appointments. And he wants no FBI investigations. He's trying to eliminate that component as well. And the Senate may agree. They may let him. But there may be 4 or 5 of them that are going to say, no, we're not doing this. And either all 3 are going to get through, or none of them are going to get through, because I think that Republicans are going to have to make a decision. Are they going to stay in control and do perform their role, or are they going to let Trump have his way? And I think it's going to come down to that. And if they reject one, they'll reject all 3. If they let one through, they'll let all three through.
There's a lot more appointments than 3.
No, I'm just talking about the 3 that are most controversial right now. Tulsi Gabbard, Hegseth, and Gates. All 3 of those people are either going to get through or none of them are going to get through. And so we'll see which way, how
there'll be
few handful of Republicans that are concerned about letting Trump have people who will do his bidding, whether it's constitutional or not. And they're going to be the ones to decide. And you remember, there's also another major issue going on that I don't think you guys have talked about, and that is Trump at this point has not signed the transition agreement. Or have you guys talked about that? And I missed it.
No, we haven't. He's trying to avoid the background checks because last time a number of his cabinet appointees, including his own son-in-law, were denied security clearance. He is trying to avoid that process. He is going to, in my mind, this is my opinion, he's going to avoid all of those disclosures, all of that paperwork, and then just at the end, when he's named and finally president, he's just going to force those to happen, just like he did last time. Even though Jared Kushner couldn't get security clearance, he just forced the issue.
Why
and
couldn't
made sure
Jared
was there.
Kushner get security clearance?
I don't remember, but he couldn't get clearance. And the issue is, and he sat in on the meetings, and Trump pushed it. So Biden
he's got a couple others right now that are. He can appoint the criminally insane to take positions in the White House. They don't need approval to go through the approval process. So those who can't get cleared to head a department then can go into the White House. But the ones that he wants heading departments have to at least technically pass a security clearance, unless the Senate says, no, we'll go on recess for a week and let you appoint everybody. I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah,
no, I think they're
going to put him through.
Appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to do the recess appointments. And on the National Guard thing, I understand the point that you're making, but what we do know is on the day, Donald Trump never asked for the National Guard. While he could see on TV, and we know he was watching what was going down, he never reached out to the Pentagon. He never asked for the National Guard. It was
I don't know if that's true, but the bigger point was
it is true.
He's very upset about the idea of using troops against American people.
No, he's
and I'm
not.
like,
no, well, Tony is, yes, and Trump has talked about that. But the issue being that what we do know, because the Pentagon, again, paperwork. The government runs on paperwork. The paperwork shows that it was Mike Pence during the riot that reached out to the Pentagon. The call did not come from Donald Trump. Did not come from the White House.
Days before, they were encouraging D.C. police and Nancy Pelosi to strengthen the protection of the Capitol with the National Guard.
There was a conversation about it, but yet again, here's the idea. So what we're talking about is that we should have anticipated these fine patriots that were supporters of Donald Trump, that were there for a peaceful rally that Donald Trump himself told his followers to be peaceful during the riot. They should have anticipated that they were going to lose their stuff and go crazy and act a fool. That's the argument we're making, is that we should have known, whoever was in charge should have known that Donald Trump supporters were going to go break things and try to kill the vice president. I disagree with that. We should not have assumed that. And in fact, hang on a sec. And if we did, if you would have had Nancy Pelosi, and she doesn't have the responsibility, but anybody else involved in the Capitol saying, we need to have 20,000 National Guard troops in front of the Capitol because we're afraid of Donald Trump supporters, that would have been the narrative. So that's the issue, that we shouldn't have assumed.
We've gone down a very unique
also,
rabbit hole, but what Tony said as a critique of Pete Hegseth was that he has called for troops to be used against American citizens. I asked for an example of that. I didn't get one.
I think it was talking about Trump.
And then I just asked Tony if he would be opposed to National Guard troops defending the Capitol on January 6th. So the critique was, we're going to use troops against our own people. Okay. So no troops, January 6th, defend the Capitol. And then we ended up with bizarre distractions out there and all that stuff. So
I understand. But if we're worried about defending the Capitol, we do know the one person that did not call on the troops to defend the Capitol that day is Trump. We do know he was the one person in this entire conversation that we know he didn't. There were other people as well, but we know he didn't. We do know, however, based on reporting,
he's willing to use troops against the American people, but not willing to use troops against the American people.
We do know based on reporting that when he did the press conference, not the press conference, the press op in the church, standing in front of the church holding the Bible, we do know that they used tear gas and other means to move those protesters out. In that conversation, reporting is that Donald Trump asked if they could shoot some of the protesters if they wouldn't move. And he didn't talk about lethally. He wanted to know if they could shoot him in the leg or something. And he also, I know, but that is the reporting, the conversation. So the idea that he didn't want to use the troops against them, he also has talked about
how literally we're dancing all around it on all different angles.
Oh yeah, I know, I understand that.
It's like we're going to criticize Donald Trump for using troops. Would you have used troops on January 6th? Well, I don't want to talk about that.
No,
but then he used troops, but then he wanted to shoot people, but then he didn't call the troops on January 6th. It's all just bash Trump stuff.
No, it's not necessarily bash Trump. I'm just talking about what we know about him and what his decision-making process is. I'm not with Tony. I'm not saying that he necessarily wants to use troops against the American people. I think there are times in which he thinks that it is relevant, and he's talked about those different instances a number of times in a variety of different regions. But again, remember, he also has talked about putting his political enemies in front of a military tribunal. And I think Tony's more important point that we kind of eventually lost was that, is Hegseth going to be a rubber stamp for Donald Trump's worst impulses? That could be a problem. And I think that's the really germane critique in this conversation. Is Hegseth going to
we're going to go to nuclear war?
Again, Donald Trump wanted to go to nuclear war against hurricanes. So what's this? No, he asked if they could. I'm just saying what has been reported, and I'm just saying that's what he wanted. So if we're going to bring nuclear war, I don't think Donald Trump has threatened nuclear war. But if you want to bring it up and go to the extreme, I'll talk about the times in which he talked about when we can use nuclear weapons. And no, I don't think he's going to go to nuclear war. But the issue being that if he's leaning into some of his worst impulses,
right? But that's
should
you made
Pete
that
Hegseth
critique.
do that? Yeah, should Pete Hegseth go ahead and let him do what he wants to? And
all right. Well, let's go back to the phone lines. Mary, Wyoming. Good morning, Mary.
Morning.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, good. Oh, I have to agree with you, Jeff. I'm going to go back to your original question or position, and that is that I think that there's more to hiring Gates than what you see. And I think a good example is Trump supports Johnson. I don't know why, but he supports Johnson. And getting Gates out would be real important in that, as they go through, it could be disruptive as far as getting his agenda through. So I do think that there's another issue. But along with that, then, Bill, I have a question for you. Who's the guy that you mentioned? That is it the CIA one that you said supports the issue regarding what do you want to call it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to follow you.
No, you talked about him supporting the voting problem, the voting.
Oh, Kash Patel. Yeah, I think you're talking about Kash Patel, who so far is not in a cabinet position, and I actually saw blowback inside of the MAGA-verse when Donald Trump made a different CIA appointment other than Patel. But yeah, ask the question.
Okay, now because Trump has not given up wanting to talk about the stolen election, and I believe that that's one of the things, and that goes back to. Because I believe that the election was stolen too, and I will believe that one of the reasons that it was never out was because you had all who was in power. There's a book out there called "Invisible Treason in America," and that's by McEnroy. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that it talks about the CIA and their program on what they called. Hammer and scorecard.
Oh, that's,
and I think that there's
I gotta stop you there on that one, Mary. Hammer and scorecard is completely and totally bogus. And that's been proven.
That'll be interesting.
Well, hang on,
and I think
Mary,
that'll be proven too.
Here's the reason, Mary. No, we know that Hammer and Scorecard are completely and totally bogus. And the reason we know that is the guy that claims responsibility is a scammer. That has been proven. He's fraudulent. And what we do have is records from the government that show that he did say he could create these computer programs. Our government gave him tens of millions of dollars, and he never delivered a single program. That because, again, the government runs on paperwork. That's what's been proven so far. Hammer and Scorecard, I'm sorry, are completely bogus. They do not exist. They are a fantasy, and it is two programs that a scammer sold to our government.
Then why, in the beginning of their book, there is 7 pages, mostly military retired, going back all the way in the Obama of the thing. And these people are not imaginary. And they're saying that Hammer and Scorecard does exist.
Because they were sold a bogus bill of goods. And I'm certain that they were going through meetings at the time that this fraudulent computer programmer was telling them it can do X, Y, and Z.
Time will tell. Grab the popcorn and listen.
Here's the thing, though. We would have seen it. We would have seen Hammer and Scorecard. That's the issue.
We wouldn't.
It doesn't
How would we
exist.
feel when it was
exist.
hidden by the Democrats?
No, it's
by the swamp.
But aren't you assuming that it was hidden? And here's the idea: is you're making this assumption that it was hidden, and what we do know is that John Durham was appointed by Donald Trump and worked through the Biden administration. He was still appointed during the Biden administration and delivered his investigation into the deep state that was started by Donald Trump.
The deep state is the one who recommended Durham to Trump.
No, but he's the guy that went.
Yes, it is. Durham was not. He turned out to be the snake in the grass. When Trump was elected the last time, all those people came from the swamp that was for him to have on his cabinet,
so Mary,
and they screwed him.
Let's walk through this, Mary. So what we're saying is that Donald Trump chose a guy who at the time seemed he was supposed to be the vanguard. He was supposed to be the Sherlock Holmes that was going to go out there and find the deep state. And then when he comes through and he continues to work through the Biden administration that is supposed to be corrupt, he is still given free reign. He still goes through his investigation. And when he finally delivers his report, he has nothing. And so what you've come to the conclusion on that I find interesting is, we're going to rewrite history. We're going to go back to the beginning, and now we're going to decide because John Durham didn't give me the results that I already assumed were there. He's now obviously broken, and he's a snake, and he's in part of the deep state. He didn't just because he didn't prove what you already felt existed. Now he's the traitor. Nothing that he did showed him to be irrelevant or not able to do the job or anything else. But we make this conclusion and then we denigrate him afterwards because he didn't tell us what we wanted to hear. That's basically what I'm hearing from you, and that's fair. But he wasn't part of the deep state or anything else. He was supposed to be the guy that came from the outside. That's why he was pulled and everything else. And after more than 5 years, he found nothing. And if we had the huge thing as far as election fraud, Fox News should have proved something. They could have proved anything. But they didn't prove anything.
No, I have to chuckle. In other words, I still find it fascinating that, in other words, there is evidence out there, and that
Mary,
goes back to.
I love you, Mary, but there's none.
I know, and I love you too, Billy. However, I still say there is more that has been covered, and it's going to be coming to the light, and that was one of the reasons why Trump wants somebody who supports him in that, because he wants the real details coming out, and it will eventually come out. I really do believe that.
Mary, appreciate the call.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate that a lot. That is fantastic. You know those times when you're a kid and you felt great throughout the entire day. You're running around and you've got like 10,000 bolts of energy, and then you get older and all of a sudden you're like, this isn't working out so well. That's partially because of your hormones. And I want to talk to you about my friends at Balance Wellspace. Something I've gone through with them is I was talking to them saying, this time I'm running out of energy middle of the afternoon. And sometimes, even though I've had a complete night's sleep, I still wake up as if I need another 8 hours. And then I have weird fatigue that jumps up on me throughout the day. It wasn't like that when I was in my teenage years. It wasn't like that in my 20s, but it slowly started through my mid 30s and through my 40s. And now that I'm older, it's our hormones. I didn't know this. Balance Wellspace has got an amazing free seminar that you can go and hang out with them December 3rd, Tuesday evening. Complimentary wine, cheese, crackers. You get to meet the Balance Wellspace team. But most importantly, you get to find out about bioidentical hormone replacement theory. Sounds really Star Trek-y. Basically, it's an IV with this fancy liquid they have inside, and it's replacing the hormones that you've lost out of your body over the course of decades of just living your life. It's okay. Your body doesn't produce as many hormones as it did when you were younger. Remember when you go to those teenage years and those hormones are like, nah, yeah, that kind of thing. You don't have that right now, but this is a replacement therapy. It can cut down on the fatigue. It can cut down on the tiredness. It can cut down on you just feeling achy and feeling like just something's off throughout the day. It's not something you have to go through all the time, but it's a nice pick-me-up that happens every few weeks. I've done it a number of times with Balance Well Space, and I cannot tell you the difference it has made in my life. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, this feels normal. This feels like I did in my 20s, just like they've been helping me out with my bum back and also my dumb knee right now. I'm regenerating the meniscus in my knee right now as we speak, but I'm also working on regenerating the disc in my back. I want you to talk to Balance Wellspace, balancewellspace.com. Amazing office in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2, plenty of parking. They do crazy things with integrative medicine where you can see all sorts of different modalities and all sorts of treatments right there under one roof. But go into this open house, talk to them about the hormone replacement. You also get to talk to the entire medical team and see what they're all about. See the chiropractic care, the neuropathic care, the trigger point injections, all of the stuff, the regenerative care. All that's going to be there for you, but you've got to make sure you reserve your space. Contact Balance Wellspace, balancewellspace.com. This is Tuesday, December 3rd at 5 p.m. Complimentary wine, cheese, crackers, but space is limited. Do not miss out on your chance to talk to the team that has made such an incredible difference in my life. Reach out to them, balancewellspace.com.
That's great to hear, Bill. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump has chosen Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat member of Congress and presidential candidate, to serve as the director of
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump has chosen Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat member of Congress and presidential candidate, to serve as the director of national intelligence as he continues to stock his cabinet with loyal personalities who come with years of professional experience in their fields. In a statement, Trump said, "I know Tulsi will bring the fearless spirit that has defined her illustrious career to our intelligence community. Fighting for our constitutional rights and securing peace through strength, Tulsi will make us all proud." Trump also appointed Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, saying he will be a strong advocate for our nation, a true friend to our allies, and a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. I look forward to working with Marco to make America and the world safe and great again. Canada's Labour Minister, Stephen McKinnon, says he is intervening to end lockouts at the country's two biggest ports after the negotiations reached an impasse. He said he's directing the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order the resumption of all operations at the ports of Vancouver and Montreal and move the talks to binding arbitration. Port of Montreal's workers were locked out Sunday, and workers in Vancouver have been locked out since November 4th. McKinnon says there is a limit to the economic self-destruction that Canadians will accept. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Weil, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Trump's picks, his cabinet. He's ready to go to battle against the deep state, the swamp with. Here's Eric Swalwell on Gates. You know they got some beef. Here's Eric yesterday.
Your reaction to the news of Matt Gaetz as Attorney General?
It's not going to happen. I know that's a different take than anyone else's, but it's not going to happen. And so if the president-elect wanted to amuse us today during these dark times, I will give him credit for having a sense of humor, because I didn't think he had a sense of humor, but this shows that he might have a sense of humor. Puff Daddy, Diddy, may be cheering in his cell for this, but no one else in America is asking for this. And I have more confidence than you probably would think I should have that the Senate is never going to let this see the light of day.
And on Monday, Trump made clear that he'll use the recess appointments. Do you not believe him, or do you not think that Matt Gaetz is eligible for a recess appointment?
I believe that such an unserious appointment like this, by appointing somebody who clearly would abuse the power at the Department of Justice, has to move senators to not allow a recess appointment, because this would just wreak chaos on the American criminal justice system. So again, I don't want people to get too spun up about this. I don't want to ruin how this is going to end. But the spoiler alert is Matt Gaetz is not going to be the Attorney General. I actually, knowing Donald Trump, and I have been on this guy for 8 years, Russia investigation, impeachment. I have my own lawsuit against him. I testified in the Colorado case to keep him off the ballot. This to me feels more like the opening of a negotiation, trying to own the libs. And I just caution all of us, let's not spin ourselves up too much, because this is never going to happen.
So that's Eric Swalwell. He's a congressman from California. When you listen to that whole list of things, I was on the effort to try to keep him off the ballot. I have my own personal lawsuit, the Russia investigation. It definitely diminishes his authority here. Here's my question. Are we doing to Gaetz what the left did to Trump early on, when they just said, they brushed him off the entire time, going, well, you came down the golden escalator. Donald Trump's never going to be the president. I see those videos all the time. George Clooney, Julia Roberts, all of them saying this will never happen. And then the guy's been elected twice. Are the Democrats, are the progressives dismissing Matt Gaetz too easily when they should be taking this confirmation hearing more seriously? And could Matt Gaetz get through and be the Attorney General? What do you think? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line at 720-819-5115. You agree with Eric Swalwell?
Yeah, I do agree. I don't think there's any way that Gaetz gets through, and mostly not what Swalwell was saying, but because he has made a lot of enemies. He has ticked off a lot of people, and I'm not certain that he's got the capital in order to make it through the confirmation hearing.
Phone line starting to light up. Gabe texting in, Matt Gaetz is the worst of the picks. Otherwise, you're good with the others. There's this effort to kind of spin up opposition to Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think it'll hold. I've got to know Tulsi. She spent 2 Western conservative summits with us and spent the entire weekend meeting with our students, talking with our donors, hanging out. She felt very comfortable around social conservatives, even though she's not one herself, former Democrat. And there's a whole critique out there. If you look at who's left the Democrat Party now come over to support what Donald Trump's doing, I think that sends a very compelling message. Elon Musk voted for Biden, now working with Trump to take on this bloated government and the big programs it has. Wow, what a time to watch what's happening in Washington, D.C. All right, we'll get to your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Trump cabinet picks, most notably Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. What do you think? Let's go to Jim Littleton. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. I was just going to say on the recess appointments, both Bush and Obama had them. Trump in his first term never was allowed them. And I think part of that was the animus of Mitch McConnell. He was not on board. And I think that I think he's basically asking what has been allowed to by his predecessors. I think Obama, one of them had over 100. And he needs to put the people that he feels trusted. He's got reasons why he wants Matt Gaetz. Lawfare has been against him as well, quite a bit. They were trying to take him out. So he needs somebody that has experienced it himself. And I think it's a great appointment myself.
Now, Jim, remind me, did any of those previous presidents appoint someone like Attorney General or a Secretary of Defense in their recess appointments? My recollection is those were lower level cabinet positions. That's what my concern is with a higher level cabinet position. I believe that fundamentally you erode credibility if you can't get that position through Congress. I think it shows that that person necessarily may not have the authority or the ability to get there. So, I mean, again, I am not familiar with it, but I don't recall any of the major level cabinet appointments being a recess appointment. But I can be wrong. Not only be like the 17th time this morning.
Well, I don't have an answer to that as well. But
That's
I would
fair.
say somebody that's been a firebrand is definitely going to be not one that's easily accepted. I would say somebody such as like Eric Holder. Probably he did, but he was not. He carried Obama's water, clearly. He did so many things like we know that he should have been, if we were playing fairly, he should have been put in serving time himself, because
we can make the same comment of Rumsfeld as well, and there's some questions too, as others said. Yeah, that's a fair one, but I'm curious about the level of appointment. And Jim, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. That's a good reminder. A lot of recess appointments, still an opportunity, but do you do it at the highest level?
And coming up next, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners is going to join us, because you're not going to believe what the Democrats want to do now with your guns. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've been to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history, and Donald J. Trump's about to be your president again. And we got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment, we're going to be joined by Ian Escalante, the executive director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. Word on the street, we may be seeing this upcoming legislative session here in Colorado an effort to create a gun registry so that the state of Colorado knows all the guns that you have and a gun limit. So you can only purchase so many guns. Thank you, Colorado, for becoming this deep, deep blue progressive hellhole. We'll get into that and more. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 32 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 59 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Donald Trump, our next president of these United States of America. The president-elect Donald Trump announced that Matt Gaetz will be the next attorney general.
A lot of MAGA supporters love the nomination of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. He will be, will he be confirmed? Will there be a recess appointment process? Who knows? The guy who allegedly had relations with the Chinese spy, Eric Swalwell.
It's not going to happen. I know that's a different take than anyone else's, but it's not going to happen. And so if the president-elect wanted to amuse us today during these dark times, I will give him credit for having a sense of humor, because I didn't think he had a sense of humor, but this shows that he might have a sense of humor.
In June, Gaetz did the right thing and grilled Merrick Garland over the lawfare in places like New York in Judge Mersham's courtroom.
Very clear, you're asking me to comment on a case in another jurisdiction.
No, wait, hold on, Mr. Attorney General. Did you ever have a family member profit off of the notoriety of any case that you sat over?
Say again, you're asking
yes or no?
me, you're asking me to comment on a case currently.
Well, it seems you're connecting the dots, Mr. Attorney General. I'm just asking you as to a general principle, but you are aware that Judge Mersham's daughter was profiting off of this prosecution. You are aware that that creates the appearance of impropriety. You know the very reason there's a federal rule against judges giving donations is because it is the very attack on the judicial process that we're concerned about.
Tulsi Gabbard named Director of National Intelligence.
President Biden has not been the guy calling the shots. He has not been the guy making the decisions. It is this cabal of, you know, the Democrat elite, the woke warmongers, made up of the likes of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and, you know, Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and, you know, people who are in the military industrial complex, people who profit from us being in a constant state of war.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is being nominated by Republicans to retain his position for another 2 years. Johnson was running unopposed and won the speakership nomination on a voice vote. Republicans also voted Steve Scalise as House Majority Leader. DJT at the White House on Wednesday. He has returned. He was with Sleepy Joe for about 2 hours. Both talked about a peaceful transition of power and shook hands.
Politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
All right, greatest words Biden has ever said. You're welcome, and thank you all. And then it's going to be the end here in a couple of months. Governor Polis announced he is co-chairing a state-level coalition with Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois to protect institutions of American democracy ahead of DJT's second term. According to their websites, Governors Safeguarding democracy will leverage the collective strength, experience, and institutional knowledge to craft, love that word, craft, policies and laws to protect the rule of law. Polis said in a statement that protecting democracy has never been more relevant or important, kind of like when they chose Kamala Khan to run for president, even though she wasn't elected to run for anything. Democracy.
A democracy is a political system in which the people periodically, by majority vote at the polls, select their rulers. The rulers then have absolute power to make whatever laws they please by majority vote among themselves. In a constitutional republic, the people also, by majority vote at the polls, select rulers who make laws by majority vote among themselves. But the rulers cannot make any laws they please because the Constitution severely restricts their lawmaking power.
Thank you, God. Matt Gaetz' wife, hey, she can sing Ginger. Wow. The national anthem. At the Capitol. Beautiful video. Love it. Avs over the Kings 4-2 for their third straight victory. 31 in Lone Tree, 30 in Brighton, 32 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Nice November weather for Denver in the Front Range for the next few days. Sunny to partly sunny, seasonal temperatures in the 50s to near 60 today and tomorrow. Little bit cooler on the lower end of the 50s for the weekend. For today and Friday, dry. Sunny to partly sunny, a few more clouds, a little breezy, but still dry for Saturday into Sunday. Showers late Monday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to get to Rocky Mountain gun owners here in a bit. We'll go back to the phone lines, but this is interesting. This is from Congressional Research Service. So these are researchers that lawmakers can use. They put together a report on recess appointments. President Obama made 32 recess appointments, all to full-time positions. During his presidency, Clinton made 139 recess appointments, 95 to full-time positions, 44 to part-time positions. George W. Bush made 171 recess appointments, 99 to full-time positions, and 72 to part-time positions. So,
do they rank them at all? Because what I'm looking at is because I'm looking at is there things like, is there an AG? Is there a Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Interior? Is there, someone in charge of national intelligence? What's the level of appointment?
They're all over the place, but you do have some like Deputy Attorney General James Cole was that. Now I can't find actual Attorney General.
Yeah,
that was Obama.
Okay,
that was an Obama recess position. So they get up there. Other ones are like Chief of Mission Turkey.
Yeah,
Chief of Mission Azerbaijan.
Yeah, and said that those are the ones that seem appropriate for a recess appointment, because that to me, the idea that we have to run someone that is the diplomat that's going to this country through the Senate confirmation process seems phenomenally stupid and a waste of their time. I mean, they hardly work as it is. Mm-hmm. We're going to have them sit down and do this crap? No, I am perfectly fine. In fact, I would love a Mendoza line where this group of people need to be confirmed by the Senate. Everybody below, have at it. If you want to name cartoon characters, go for it. That's fine. If we want to have, Peppa the Pig be the diplomat to England, go right ahead. Go right ahead, even though she's from England, but still,
Bodie McBoatface. All right,
yes,
let's
exactly.
go to Brian Arvada. Good morning, Brian.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. I actually kind of agree with Eric, bang, bang, fang, fang, or whatever,
nice
whatever
job,
his name is.
Good job.
But, he's sleeping with a Chinese national. But I don't know if Trump wants to, spend this much capital this early on a firebrand. I think this might be a part of his negotiation where he's got someone else in mind. But we doubt Trump, and look what happens. He gets the last laugh. But my larger point is, Democrats are shaking in their boots because Trump pulled the curtain on the deep state last term. Now he's going to do a deep dive into the Democrats, and they are scared to death. that he's going to find out everything they tried to do to him. I mean, look at all these lawsuits. They were so serious, but now they're going away. But I thought they were so serious.
Well, he can dismiss them, Brian. He can dismiss the federal ones. And that's just de rigueur. That's just what he gets to do. So those will go away. The state ones will probably stick around. Especially one in Georgia. That one's probably going to stick for a while. Let's see what happens with the other. With what happens in New York.
He'll never. Trump will get convicted. He'll never go to jail like they wanted him to. But I think they're shaking in their boots because if he does a deep dive, I mean, there's a shredding paper party going on right now for the next 2 months in the administration, the current administration. And all the deep staters, I guarantee it. So that's what they're worried about. And I think Gates is just a power play, but someone else I think he might have in mind.
Now, Brian, I saw Gates resigns. So the House Ethics Committee report about the allegations that he was involved in underage sex trafficking is not going to come out. The DOJ did look into this, decided not to press charges. They did press charges against one of his associates, but did not press charges against Matt Gaetz. He is innocent until proven guilty of these accusations. So now he's going, this is what I don't quite understand. He's resigned his House position. So if Trump is not serious about driving him all the way through, we're going to put a guy up. All these allegations are going to be discussed during the confirmation hearing, and then he's not going to be appointed. He's not a congressman. What does he do then? He just walked out of any type of power in Congress.
That's a good point. And that's what I was thinking about. He resigned. So now what happens if he doesn't get confirmed? But again, Trump is down on the throat, or he's got another position for himself. Definitely going to be in the Trump administration, no matter what.
It'll be, and there are places President Trump could put Matt Gaetz that don't require Senate confirmations and all this stuff. So, yeah, great question. Great call, Brian. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Somebody that should absolutely be in Congress?
Who?
Or in the government?
Yeah. Who?
Because he's great. Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law.
Oh, yeah.
I've known Dan for well over a decade. This guy is so solid. He's pro-life. He's pro-family. He's pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. You show up with one of those back alley, slip and fall attorneys. Well, you're not sending a serious message. Listen to this. Dan Caplis, he's the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian. He's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. That's important, but not as important as being a real winner out there, right? Dan is believed, and listen to this, to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law, so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases, and you might be saying to yourself, no, he's just worth too much. I can't pay him. It's not true. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis. That means he can help represent good people from all walks of life without regard to their ability to pay. So look, chances are you're not on the side of the road in a car accident right now. At least I hope you're not. So you need to put his phone number in your phone. So when that happens and you're having to deal with the police and you're having to deal with insurance, you can call Dan right away. Here's his phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. So, want to get into this now. The Democrats hinting at the Colorado State Capitol that we may be facing gun registries and restrictions on the number of guns you can be purchasing at in your own personal life now. These laws may be coming, and coming up in a second, we're going to talk to Ian Escalante. He's an executive director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. You're not going to want to miss this. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So all of these rumors are starting to spread on X. By the way, can I just leap with joy? All the progressives that are now like leaving X, like Joy Reid. There's this new thing called Blue Sky.
That's been around for a while. Is Blue Sky, I believe, is the dude that started Twitter. I think that's his thing. Is Blue Sky. Yeah.
So they're doing what Trump did with True Social. They're going over to do with Blue Sky.
And I'm wondering if that one will stick because the others have not. There have been a couple out there that have risen.
They'll come back. Joy Reid will come back to X. But one of the rumors I saw out there was with regards to what the Democrats may be doing in this upcoming legislative session. And the best fighters down at the Colorado State Capitol by 4 in defending our Second Amendment rights. I mean, they go to the mat to protect your constitutional rights as Rocky Mountain gun owners. And joining us live in studios, Ian Escalante. Thanks so much for taking time to join us.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's good to be back.
So first, let's give me your review on the election, because it went well nationally, but then now I got to pay more for ammo.
Yeah, so pretty much what I've been telling everyone is that overwhelmingly across the United States, you saw the American people resoundingly vote no on an anti-gun agenda. Kamala Harris ran on national red flag gun confiscation, expanded background checks, an assault weapons ban, heavily regulating the Second Amendment. And quite frankly, her goal when she ran in 2020, she pretty much said that she didn't want any guns in any homes whatsoever. She even talked about doing mandatory buybacks. You saw her backtrack this a little bit with her saying, well, I own a Glock and I do this. And, really trying to pander.
She comes across as a real, gun user.
Oh, absolutely. So the thing is overwhelmingly nationwide, the American people voted against it. Colorado, they didn't really read the memo, though. But what I do want to talk about is the fact that there have been a lot of people, specifically individuals over at the 9 News studio, that have been saying, Colorado bucked the national trend. They moved further left. When you actually dive in and look at the numbers, it's not entirely true. Yeah. So, yes, it didn't move as far to the right as the rest of the country. You saw major shifts in states like Illinois, New York, California, even some of the northeastern states like Rhode Island and Connecticut have been, most of the last couple election cycles, the Democrats have won those states with like 70% of the vote. And this time it was just about a 10-point margin, 15-point margin in those states. But the big thing here in Colorado is that while we didn't move as drastically as the rest of the country, we still saw some very, very interesting things from this election. I want to dive into it. First things first, the biggest loss of the night in Colorado was Proposition KK passing. 6.5% tax on guns and ammo, and you can thank Denver, you can thank Boulder, and you can thank all the ski towns for pushing that through. Unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. We're in a situation now where Denver, Boulder, and the ski towns up and down the western slope, not really the western slope, but through the middle of the state. And now you look at Larimer County. Larimer County did move a couple points in the Democrats' direction.
Douglas County too.
Biggest thing you're seeing here is that we have 15 counties that have enough people in them that they can really sway the rest of the state. And that's very disappointing. And unfortunately, it's a reality that we're going to have to reckon with. And the next step is going to be figuring out how to fight back against that.
Who put KK on the ballot?
So that was not a citizen initiated petition. So it was pushed by Majority Leader Monica Duran in the House. It was pushed by the Democrat Women's Caucus. So people like Lisa Cutter, Lorena Garcia, and they pushed this through the House. And they were able to get it through the Senate by cutting the tax in half. Initially, the tax was going to be 11%. They cut it down to 9% in the House. And then the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Kyle Mullica, said, there's no way I'm going to let a 9% guns and ammo tax go through my committee. But what they did is they pretty much lit him on fire. They, for about a week straight, dominated the media, saying that Kyle Mullica hates women. He doesn't care about domestic violence victims. He hates veterans. He hates pretty much every good person under the sun. He's a terrible person. He hates them all. So he ended up folding to the pressure, and the deal that they cut was, okay, if we just make it a 6.5% tax, then, we'll go ahead and let it go through the Senate Finance Committee. And the reason why it went to the ballot and ended up having to go to the ballot is because of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
They can't hike a tax like that without a vote of the people. So unfortunately, the people in Denver and the people in Boulder and the people in other highly populated liberal parts of the state did push for this through. Now, what we're doing right now is we're looking, we have a fantastic team of lawyers looking at this right now. We're trying to figure out what our options are, because realistically, this is a tax on a God-given right. This is not a tax on nicotine. This is not equitable to a tax on marijuana. You don't see the Constitution protecting those rights. The firearms industry is the only industry in America that is constitutionally protected via the Second Amendment. Now, I want to get into the legislative races a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
That's where we actually had some victories. So up in Senate District 13 in Greeley, we ended up flipping that Senate seat. So that was previously held by Kevin Priola, who was elected as a Republican. A couple years ago, he said, I hate Donald Trump. I can't stand this anymore. So he went and switched his party to a Democrat. That seat was actually supposed to be very competitive, and RMGO endorsed candidate Scott Bright ended up beating the brakes off of the guy that the Democrats put up for that seat. He won by 13 points. So that was a major victory. Another major victory in the legislature was we defeated Representative Mary Young. Representative Mary Young is the wife of Dave Young, who's our state treasurer. He had held that seat before her, and then she came in via vacancy committee. Jeff, that seat has been Democrat held since 2005. There has not been a Republican to hold that seat. It's always been a very, very narrow Democrat seat, but this is the first time that this seat has flipped. And RMGO and our partner group, Coloradans for Safer Neighborhoods, spent a lot of money in that seat, talking to voters. We knocked doors, we called people, we sent mail, and thankfully we were able to get Ryan Gonzalez, who lost in 2022 by about 300 votes. We were able to get him over the finish line, and he ended up pulling out a victory with about 500 votes.
So does the Democrats still have a supermajority in the House?
So that's what we're waiting on. So
Yeah.
today we're going to find out whether the Democrats have a supermajority in the House or not. And the craziest thing is the last two races that have yet to be called are House District 19. So
is that Dan Woog?
That's Dan Woog.
He's a good one.
Yeah, he's a great one. Whenever they went ahead and redrew the maps, the so-called Independent Redistricting Commission redrew the maps. They drew this district in southern Weld County. So we're pretty much around the area just north of Brighton, Decano, Fort Lupton, and then it cuts a little bit into Boulder County in the Erie area. That seat, which used to be just Weld County, at that point I think it was House District 63 or 64, that got moved to House District 19, and that district moved a little bit further west into Boulder County. And then we saw a Democrat take that seat in 2022. Right now, after they're curing ballots at the moment, Dan Woog holds about a 230 vote lead. And the craziest thing too is both of these legislative races are two of RMGO's priority number one races. So we spent a lot of money. We were really able to move the needle. And right now it looks like we may be able to emerge victorious by the skin of our teeth. Down in House District 16, Rebecca Kelty currently holds a 21 vote lead over Representative Stephanie Vigil. You want to talk about the most radical, leftist, crazy gender ideology, gun grabber. She voted for the assault weapons ban. Look no further than Stephanie Vigil. So if we're able to take her out and we're able to get Dan Woog reelected, the Democrats will lose their supermajority.
Wow. That is big news. By the way, we're talking to Ian Escalante. He's the executive director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. So now you have all these rumors of efforts that they want to continue to restrict your Second Amendment rights. Let's walk through those. What are you hearing we may be facing?
So I saw yesterday, this came out on Twitter, aka X, and Valdemar Archuleta, who actually ran against Diana DeGette for Congressional District 1, he had sent me some information, and then he ended up posting it on Twitter. And pretty much what he was hearing is there was some sort of gun violence prevention forum that went on yesterday. And you had the usual suspects there. You had Tom Sullivan, Stephen Woodrow, all the gun grabbers, which this is something we can talk about later, but there's a good shot Woodrow ends up in the Senate with Hansen resigning now. So that's something.
He is next on the line of just some of the worst down there after Tim Hernandez, Elizabeth Epps, Stephen Woodrow. I mean, the day that Donald Trump was assassinated, he comes out and says, "Oh no, now we have to have compassion for the devil."
Yeah, for the devil. It was crazy.
He blamed me for the Club Q shooting.
Did he actually?
Yeah, right. He goes on X and he's like, "This is because of Jeff Hunt. You have blood on your hands." I was like, "I don't like this." And it was within 30 minutes of all this stuff starting to happen.
Yeah, that guy is completely nuts.
Yeah,
he's even come. He actually during one of the hearings last year, what he was talking about. Well, his whole thing is the Second Amendment is an absolute. It can be regulated, and he was trying to poke holes in the Supreme Court's argument. He ended up citing 18th century slave law as historical analogs for gun control during a committee hearing. So I thought it was not funny per se, but interesting that the party of equality is only the party of equality when it fits them.
Yeah. Oh, that's 100%.
And then as soon as it doesn't fit them anymore, they're going right back to 1850s Democratic Party.
Right. Ian Escalante, Executive Director, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. So what are we hearing? We're hearing gun registry. Now,
yes.
I just went through the 3-day waiting period the other day.
Yep.
So I get to enjoy all that of just being like, all right, I'll come back. And it's not a 3 days for them to do the background check. They could do that in 20 minutes.
No, they do it in 20 minutes.
Yeah, they used to do that real quick. But now it's this idea that maybe you're buying the gun for the wrong reason. So we want to give you a cooling off period.
Yeah.
In order. And, for me, it was conceal carry, that type of thing, and getting a different gun. And so, I'll come back to the Murdochs 3 days from now to pick it up. So you got that restriction. But what's a gun registry? And why is it different than background checks, waiting periods, all that?
So the NICS system is a backdoor gun registry as is. It's a gun owner registry. Yeah. What we're talking about here is an actual forced registration of your guns, which is what they try. We're actually suing Boulder County for trying to do that. They tried doing that after the King Soopers shooting. We got an injunction on that, so that's been held for now. But what we're looking at here is Woodrow is saying that, well, the Second Amendment doesn't allow you to have an armory. Doesn't allow you to be as armed as the military, which if you read any one of the writings of the founding fathers, the whole reason we have the Second Amendment is because they wanted the citizenry to be as armed up as the military, because the whole point of the Second Amendment was to make sure that we don't have a government that steps outside of their boundaries and starts becoming tyrannical.
Oh, it's hunting.
Oh,
Ian,
yeah,
it's hunting. That's why we have
That's what
it.
Tim Walz told me while he improperly loaded a shotgun.
Actually, he was unloading the shotgun on that video. That was a misnomer that was circulated online. If you look at it, he was actually unloading, not loading the shotgun at the time. And the process he was going through was correct.
Interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, he was unloading it.
So they want to create a gun, but what's wrong with the gun registry? Why not have that?
So what's going to happen is this bill is going to limit how many firearms each individual person can have.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We don't have bill text yet. My guess is it's probably going to be similar to something they passed in Virginia a couple years ago, which is 1 gun per month. But the thing is that how are they going to limit how many firearms each person can have unless they know how many firearms each person has already? The only way you can do that is via a gun registry. And
can we at least negotiate a deal that for whatever 1 gun we give up, the government has to give up 10 guns?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I know. That's the point, right? Like they're very happy taking away your guns and restricting your ability, but oh no, we're going to make sure we have all the guns we absolutely need on our side.
Yeah, it was like Ron Paul said. He said, I only support one form of gun control, and that's disarming federal agents.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, of course, they're never going to give up their guns. Why aren't they going to give up their guns? Well, we need to protect ourselves. We need to keep order. We need to do all of these things. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have an armed police force or anything like that. I don't want to make sure nobody listening thinks I went like full Elizabeth Epps or Nina Turner out here. Thank you. But the big thing here is that the fact that the government would be able to know and track how many firearms each individual person has completely flies in the face of the original intent of the Second Amendment. Yeah. If you remember, the reason why we had the battles of Lexington and Concord back in 1775 is it wasn't because, yes, they were upset that they were being taxed. They were upset at the tyranny. They were upset at all of these things. But why did the shot round heard around the world take place? It was because the British Army was coming to raid their armory. They were coming to take their guns because they wanted to make sure that the colonists did not have firearms in order to resist the tyranny of the British Crown. Now we're seeing the American government, it's a little bit better after the election, specifically the state government here in Colorado, becoming the new redcoats. They want to be able to control everyone. And you can see this not just by how they are voting on gun issues, but look at what they're doing when it comes to what you can and cannot say in the workplace. There was a bill this past year that would completely ban the discussion of religion and politics and things of that nature in the workplace. That flies in the face of the First Amendment.
Yeah,
I don't think it ended up passing. I think Polis ended up vetoing that one. I'll have to go back and look.
But these ideas would have resulted in lawmakers being repealed and recalled and run out of office if this was 2013.
Absolutely.
Right. So has this state changed that much in 11 years to where these proposed ideas are being seriously considered down at the state capitol?
The state has changed a decent amount. The other thing, too, is that the Dems have become more gutsy over the years. So, the state has changed. I think we talked about this last time I was here about I think you said 6,000 families that have left Colorado and fled to states like Texas and Florida and Arizona. The other thing we're seeing here is we're starting to see, I call it the Florida effect, because how after COVID, we saw a bunch of people from blue states fleeing, at Kathy Hochul's tyranny in New York. They fled blue states like Illinois. They fled a lot of blue states in the Northeast that had really hardcore tyranny during COVID-19. And they all moved down to Florida. And that's why you saw in just 4 years, Ron DeSantis barely squeaked out a win with the skin of his teeth. I think he won by maybe less than a percentage point in 2018 to having a 20-point blowout in 2022. And now you see President Trump carrying the state by double digits. I think what we're seeing a lot, too, is we're seeing a lot of people from red states around, a lot of liberals from Arizona, a lot of liberals from Houston, Texas, and Dallas that are fleeing those states and coming here and settling in our suburbs. But here's the one thing I want to talk about, and this goes back to the election. We saw pretty much opposite ends of the state move in opposite directions in this election. So, for example, Douglas County, so in the CD4 race, Douglas County definitely moved further to the left. In the presidential race, it stayed relatively the same to 2020, but you go down to El Paso, that stayed relatively the same. But then you move a little further south down the I-25 corridor and you get down to Pueblo County and you see something drastically different down there. Pueblo County swung 6 points in the opposite direction. So Trump won it in 2016 by the skin of his teeth. He ended up losing by about 3 points. I think it was 48-45 in 2020. I'll have to go back and look at the numbers. This time, he ends up winning Pueblo County by 5 points, a very traditionally Democrat county. You had the steel mill down there. You had a lot of union workers down there. And here, the big thing that we're seeing is we are seeing places like Pueblo, Saguache County, with Salida, that pretty much it's the middle of nowhere out in the San Luis Valley. Joe Biden won that county by double digits. This year, Kamala Harris only wins it by 4 percentage points.
Yeah, and in fact, lead editorial in the Denver Post today by Doug Friednash, former John Hickenlooper chief of staff, is Democrats need to start panicking about what's happening in Pueblo.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they think that could be a directional change for the entire state.
Yeah, well, the thing that we're seeing is we're seeing southern Colorado and far western Colorado start to move in our direction. But what we're seeing is northern Colorado and the suburbs are moving in their direction. So Jefferson County is pretty much exhibit A on what this is looking like. I was talking with Dudley actually the other day, and we were talking about how, 10, 11, 12 years ago, Jefferson County was the place to wage war in Colorado.
Like that was the Romney's headquarters was in Jeffco.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're seeing, Tammy Story and Sheila Leader in 2022, they ended up picking up 2 seats that were previously held by Republicans, District 28 and District 25. This time around, you see Tammy Story expanding her winning margin from about 1.5 to 5 points in Western Jeffco, so the Evergreen area and the area around Morrison and Red Rocks. So we're seeing that move further left. We're seeing Larimer County, Loveland moved several points to the left this time around. Representative Ron Weinberg, who's a great guy.
Barely wins.
Super pro-gun, like hardcore pro-gun champion. He ends up only winning by about 4 or 5 points in a seat that should be a 10-point blowout for the Republicans.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that move in the wrong direction. But then you look, like I said, go back to Pueblo County, Alamosa County, Saguache County. Alamosa County went blue in 2016. It barely went red in 2020. It went for Trump by 10 points.
Wow.
In 2024.
And by the way, we're talking to Ian Escalante. He's the executive director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, giving you insight into what could be coming down the legislative pike this upcoming year as the progressives continue their dominance in Colorado, but not at the point, and things are changing. So we'll continue this conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump arrived back in Washington, D.C. and was greeted with a standing ovation by House Republicans as he took the stage at the GOP conference's meeting near the Capitol.
The 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Well, thank you very much. This is a very nice gathering. Isn't it nice to win? It's nice to win. It's always nice to win.
Trump was back at Joint Base Andrews for the first time since leaving office back in 2021. With him, of course, was Elon Musk, who sat in the audience and listened as Trump spoke to the conference. Trump, who is being celebrated as the comeback king, jokingly told lawmakers, quote, "I suspect I won't be running again unless you do something else. Unless you say he's so good, we've got to figure something out." 2 people who worked at a Kentucky factory have died and 10 others were injured after an explosion at a Louisville factory that caused a partial collapse of the building and blew out windows in nearby homes and businesses. The explosion happened Tuesday afternoon at Givaudan Sense Color, which produces colorings for food and drinks. Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg says firefighters rescued and evacuated many people from the building, including some with life-threatening injuries. Officials have accounted for everyone who was working at the plant at the time. The cause is under investigation. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Weil, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us live in studios, Ian Escalante, Executive Director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. Nobody does it better, fighting for your Second Amendment rights down at the state capitol. Billy, you got some text messages.
Yeah, we get some text messages. I want to make sure that I honor their voices since they took time to text us in. Andrew wanted to ask you a question, Ian, and he wanted to ask about the confluence between the Second Amendment and God-given rights. He seems to disagree with you. Can you outline why you feel that the Second Amendment is actually a God-given right, please?
Absolutely. Well, definitely want to thank him for the question. And this is something that has been in debate in America for years now. But the real fact of the matter is that if you want the answer to this question, you got to go all the way back to the time that our Constitution was written. You got to look at the Declaration of Independence. I know nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to say that they're outdated and that they're old-fashioned or racist or whatever the new slur is against it now. But that is really the original intent of our founding fathers is the important thing. You go back to read the Federalist Papers. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison over and over and over again stated that they believed that owning a firearm and having an armed populace was a God-given right because it was the only way to resist tyranny. The other thing, too, is that there were a good amount of founding fathers that said that they would not put their hand. George Mason said that he would rather chop off his right hand than put it to the Constitution without a Bill of Rights, and specifically a right defending private firearm ownership. And if you look at George Mason, he wrote the Virginia Declaration of Rights, which their version of the Second Amendment goes even further than the Second Amendment does, where it actually gets into the fact that standing armies were helped the proliferation of tyranny. Standing armies would always lead to an overgrown and tyrannical government. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to not just allow firearm ownership for a citizen militia. That's something that the Democrats and the anti-gunners bring up there. Oh, this is for a citizen militia. We don't have citizen militias anymore, so we don't need private firearm ownership. Yes, it was for that, but it was also a way for them to, there had to be a check and balance against the government. Because if you look throughout history, every single time a government has taken away firearms, specifically in the 20th century, you have seen mass genocide. You look at the Soviet Union, you look at China, you look at Cambodia, you look at all these places where tyrants had free reign over an unarmed citizenry, and tragedy after tragedy and atrocity after atrocity took place. So the thing is that it's important to understand that the Bill of Rights doesn't grant us any rights as U.S. citizens. All it does is it recognizes the rights that we are given by God and tells the government, hey, you can't do this. And the thing is that I would pose the question to this gentleman who asked it, is free speech a God-given right? Is the right to peacefully protest, to peacefully assemble a God-given right? And if so, what makes those God-given rights less infringible? What makes the Second Amendment infringible, but makes the First Amendment absolute? And granted, you look at the First Amendment, and it says Congress shall make no law respecting religion, assembly, free exercise, all of that. But then you look at the Second Amendment and it says shall not be infringed. Very, very clear as day, shall not be infringed. The other thing too is voting a God-given right. I'm sure a lot of people the very same people who argue that gun ownership isn't a God-given right would have a complete meltdown if you said, well, I don't think voting's a right. Voting's not a right. So what makes voting different? What makes that more of an important right or less of an infringible right than the Second Amendment? I mean, you got to read the Virginia Declaration of Rights. You got to read the Federalist Papers. You got to read what our founding fathers said and why they wanted a Second Amendment. The other thing, too, is that there's a lot of lies and revisionist history and misinformation that's going out about, what the Second Amendment actually meant at the time. I remember a couple years ago, Joe Biden said, well, you know, you couldn't have a cannon when the Second Amendment was first put into place. That's completely untrue. The Mexican-American War, the War of 1812, they were literally contracting with private citizens. The U.S. Army was contracting with private citizens to use their cannon, to use their cannons. So the Second Amendment has always protected, quote unquote, military-style arms. Otherwise, back in those days, it would have been completely illegal to own a cannon, and it was not. Time and time again throughout the 19th century, we saw private citizens lending their cannons to the U.S. military, lending their arms to the U.S. military. And the whole point of this is that if there were ever to be a British Crown-style tyrannical government to rise up again, the Founding Fathers wanted us to be armed because they knew as long as the government knew that the people were armed, they would limit themselves.
Yeah. Talking to Ian Escalante, Executive Director of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. Look, if you want to join RMGO, go to rmgo.org. They're down there at the state capitol fighting to protect your Second Amendment rights that, yes, are God-given. And our culture, too, mixes up the difference between rights and benefits. And they'll happily say, oh, you have a right to health care, for instance. Well, not taking into consideration that level of thinking requires other people to provide services for your rights, whereas this is the right to protect yourself, and the government cannot intervene with that because, to your point, they're all either we all have guns or just the government has guns. So, Ian Escalante, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah,
thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Absolutely.
Again, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, go to rmgo.org. You can learn more about them there. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
I'm going to kill Kelly for making me have to listen to her cackling.
Yeah, that'll cycle out eventually, but I enjoy it for the time being.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, boy. Welcome. It's 9 a.m. to the Jeff and Bill Show. You've tuned in to 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history. Donald J. Trump's about to be your president, and we've got for you an entire hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Headline coming from the Denver Post: City Council approves Denver's $4.4 billion 2025 budget with tight financial years ahead. The budget passed without any additional amendments. The finalized 2025 document calls for $1.76 billion in general fund spending, just 0.6% more than the $1.75 billion budgeted to spend on city services this year. We're going to dive into this because true to form, absolutely true to form, progressives have all these ideas. They really want to put $1 million here, $2 million here, $3 million there. Now, half of the revenue that comes into the city comes via sales taxes, which means you got to have people visiting the city of Denver. And rather than diving into better policing, controlling the criminals running around, all that stuff, making it a place you actually want to visit, they're coming up with all these little progressive plans to spend the money, and Denver's going to continue to suffer. So you're not going to want to miss this conversation. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. It's 38 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 59 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Mandates will be the next attorney general.
DJT and Elon Musk celebrating last night with God Bless America. Matt Gaetz nominated for AG. Will he be confirmed? Former National Security Advisor John Bolton on CNN doesn't like that pick or the Tulsi Gabbard choice for Director of National Intelligence. Mr. Mustache.
Two people who are totally unqualified, unfit professionally, and really lacking in the moral characteristics, the character that you need to hold these jobs. I think this vote should be 100-0 against both of them.
Bolton, a real dope, but I thought he'd be great because he was so stupid. He was like a boiler. Every time, if somebody shot down a little tiny crappy drone that cost about $15, he'd want to go to war with Russia. I said, no, I think he was great for me, though, for a period of time because he was a nut job. And everybody, I could see his face get red with that stupid white mustache. And he'd be ready to explode. And this was good for me. I went to Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I took this moron with me. And he never said anything. But when Kim Jong-un saw him, he said, oh, shit, I think the guy wants to go to war. So he was great for me to negotiate with. The same thing with Russia.
Lefty Eric Swalwell doesn't like it either.
It's not going to happen. I know that's a different take than anyone else's, but it's not going to happen. And so if the president-elect wanted to amuse us today during these dark times, I will give him credit for having a sense of humor because I didn't think he had a sense of humor, but this shows that he might have a sense of humor.
Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman.
I mean, I would describe it as God tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
Possibly, but always remember Gaetz helped expose the fraud of Merrick Garland and expose lawfare used on DJT.
Who's Matthew Colangelo?
That is false. I did not dispatch Matthew Colangelo.
Matthew Colangelo became the Assistant Attorney General at the very beginning of the Biden administration. without having been Senate confirmed, goes and gets this senior role at the DOJ. And then after, I believe it's Gupta replaces Colangelo, Colangelo makes this remarkable downstream career journey from the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and then pops up in Alvin Bragg's office to go get Trump. And you're saying that's just a career choice that was made that has nothing to do with the lawfare coordinated by the
saying it's false. I did not dispatch Mr. Colangelo anywhere.
Do you know how he ended up there?
I assume he he applied for a job there and got the job.
But see, you know what?
I tell you, I had nothing to do with it.
Attorney and advisor Alina Habba wrote on X this morning, while she is flattered by the support and speculation, the role of press secretary is not a role that she is considering. The number of people sickened by the recent McDonald's E. coli outbreak now stands at least 104, including one death here in Colorado. There have been 30 cases here in the state. The U.S. Postal Service is investigating recent robberies involving postal carriers in Denver and Aurora. The agency says 4 incidents have been reported over a 1-month period. 3 of the carriers were held up at gunpoint. In one incident, the robbery occurred in the early evening hours of Halloween when trick-or-treaters had begun hitting the streets. The Postal Service is offering a $150,000 reward for information that leads to a conviction in a robbery. The Avalanche over the Kings 4-2 for their 3rd straight victory last night. It's 33 in Golden, 36 in Erie, 38 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Thursday. Blake Olson News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
All right, the mayor of Denver, Mike Johnston, has his budget approved. The city council, $4.4 billion. The finalized 2025 document, this comes from the Denver Post, by the way, calls for $1.76 billion in general fund spending.
How much are we getting? It's got to be a bit. Come on.
None to us.
What? Because, come on. We were named by Westward as Denver's best talk show.
I know.
So you're telling us the mayor is not giving us any of that sweet government cheese?
Nope. In fact, they're belt tightening.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But it says here in the Denver Post.
As I look at Jeff winking knowingly, please, friend, tell me, wink, wink, about how they are belt tightening. Wink, wink.
They're going to include limits on hiring across most departments. This is reflective of softening consumer spending in the city that draws more than half of its revenues from sales taxes. Okay. So I'm sitting here reading. This is the foundation. This is the architecture of the city of Denver. You got to have people visiting. Like, seriously. You got to have people visiting the city of Denver. It doesn't work if you don't have people visiting. Okay, so I'm reading this in the Denver Post. Okay, all right. Well, what is Mikey going to do to get people in there? All right, like, you sit down and you go, we're not getting people to our city. Our budget is going to be restricted. So you got to take the remaining money. Like, I just feel like the normal common sense person would do this. We're going to do everything we can to get people to visit our city, businesses to grow, safety, security. I want people to feel happy walking around the 16th Street Mall and completely safe. And I remember when Denver was like that, when we were running the Western Conservative Summit down there early on at the convention center in like 12, 13, 14. people would stay out all night, have fun. Okay. Then I actually get to read some of the stuff that we're actually spending money on. The news release highlighted the administration's commitment to spending $60 million on creating or preserving 1,400 units of affordable housing. All right. So
1,400. Huh.
1,400 units, 60 million people. By definition, I'm not trying to be mean here.
Yeah.
But if you're in affordable housing, you probably don't have a lot of extra income to spend visiting businesses downtown. Just saying, right? Like,
well, not tourism. I mean, you're going to do the typical stuff, but
again,
again,
groceries, stuff like that. But
yeah,
I mean, you gotta get the Cherry Hills folks coming downtown to buy the tickets to the Nuggets games, to go to the concerts, to all that stuff. Okay, 60 million, creating and preserving 1,400 units in affordable housing, and 58 million in economic development, including support for local entrepreneurs and minority-owned businesses. What does the city of Denver spend money on to support a minority-owned business?
My guess would be helping with things like startup costs or deferring taxes or stuff like that to just start it. And again, for me, I am not against giving all sorts of different supports and things for different industries and different pockets. And if it's something where, and again, we've seen that historically, it can be more difficult for minorities to raise the capital necessary to start businesses in some economic times. And so if they deem that to be necessary in order to give them an opportunity to start more businesses, whatever it might be, I'm fine with that.
But here's the thing. Okay. Are minority-owned businesses not starting because they don't have money from the government, or because people don't want to go down there because of crime problems? Right? Like this is what the city council and the mayor did. They went $58 million going to police. No. Police faced cuts recently, $9 million in cuts, actually. Going to a program to support local entrepreneurs and minority-owned businesses. This is where the progressives just always put money in weird directions that don't actually solve the problems that they're trying to deal with. It continues. Now, here's one good positive change, Bill. There's no longer a $2.5 million budget for a Denver basic income project. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Remember the pilot program where they just gave cash away to people?
Yeah.
So surprisingly, in all their belt tightening, the free cash to randos is gone.
Yeah. A little surprising, but we'll see. We'll see. And again, the weird part is I don't want to go too far down that road, because there are some weird things in which that guaranteed basic income has shown some ability to work, but it's very siloed and very specific to certain terms. And we talked about it a couple of months ago that one of the most surprising ones was not a smaller regular payment like a paycheck, a lump sum at some point did more to change the person's economic conditions and what they could do further on than, that type of a slow trickle payment that happened, because it allowed them to pay off a larger bill and change the balance sheet. But again, I don't know. But yeah, we got companies out there that get basic personal income based on tax supports and subsidies
right.
too. So, oh well.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So here it continues. Now, reminding everybody, the problem is people don't want to go downtown. Half of the city's revenue comes from sales taxes, and people don't want to come downtown. So what does the city council and the mayor do? They added $3 million to the city's temporary rent and utility assistance program, or TRUA, next year for a total of $23 million. During the budget amendment process in 2023, the council put pressure on the administration, which resulted in the money for TRUA rising from Johnston's original proposal of $12.6 million to $29.1 million. So they are doing the great service to everybody of putting government money into projects that then jack up the cost for everybody else. Temporary rent and utility assistance program. This is like when the government got into higher education, and then lo and behold, everything got more expensive in government-run education. So again, priority. People don't want to go downtown. Let's spend money on temporary rent and utility assistance programs. In Tuesday's news release, the Denver Post writes, administration officials touted that the 2025 budget also includes $2 million to support legal help for people facing evictions. There's plenty of nonprofits that do that. Again, I'm trying to find where we're solving the problem that nobody wants to go downtown. Johnston also added $1.1 million to the budget to boost support grants available to local businesses impacted by major infrastructure projects like the installation of East Colfax Avenue bus rapid transit line, and added $1.5 million for youth programs in response to council requests. Help me understand how this gets people downtown. Are people going, I would love to go downtown if there was an East Coast Avenue bus rapid transit line? I would absolutely spend my time hanging out downtown if only there was an East Coast Avenue bus rapid transit line. I've never heard that at all. So I'm still reading through a budget of a city struggling that can't get people downtown, and all it is progressive handouts to special interest groups.
See, and I understand some of the, I'm curious about the bus line and the rapid transit, but I do think that public transportation, especially in and out of, as we've seen inside of the urban areas, does have a positive, because one of the biggest problems going downtown right now is parking. And so if there was a more efficient way to move people, especially in urban areas, I think that has a lot of merit to it. Now, I disagree with the idea of we have this rapid transit line that runs, all the way out to Lincoln, that's south of us, or running way north, or even rapid transit line running all the way into Boulder, as was once promised. And then they took the money and did something else with it. But so that's another sideshow. Because in large urban areas, again, and I'm going to qualify this, well-run rapid transit is a boon for economics, because it's easier for people to get around, especially people that may not have a car or don't want to pay for the parking, because that's going to be part of it. So that, I think, can be an advantage inside of an urban area, but I'm curious about where it's going to be and why, because given the RTD has done a decent job, in my opinion, with bus lines, and has done a mostly crappy job with the train lines. And so when they talk about high efficiency and moving a lot of people, I'm worried they're thinking more about the train lines than the efficiency they've been able to have inside of the bus service. Bus service can blanket most of the city, and okay, I can't say efficiently can you get around, but at least you can navigate it. It's much more difficult inside the train system. So I'm worried about what their model is going to be. I'm worried they're going to lean into more of the train model, which has proven to be vastly ineffective, versus our bus lines, which seem to be much more effective at what they're trying to get.
All right. So
yeah,
you're a progressive. You want the city to put $23 million into temporary rent and utility assistance. Okay. Yeah. Your heart, you've got that bleeding heart, and you're like, people need temporary rent and utility assistance. Okay. Wouldn't you go, in order to make that money, to secure it, to fund it? I need rich people coming into the city, because half of my sales tax revenue comes from people driving into the city, going to the theater, going to the Nuggets game, going to the Avs, having dinner down there, businesses feeling comfortable to move their offices down there. We got to have the rich people there. Okay. You want to fund your little progressive program, but in order to do so, you got to get the rich people there. The rich people aren't going downtown because it's falling apart. It's crime ridden. They don't feel safe, and businesses are moving out, and they don't want to spend their evenings down there. Okay. Where in the budget is that issue addressed?
Now, I agree and I disagree with you, not surprisingly. It's not like that's the theme of the show here. But I see what you mean by bringing the rich people downtown. The problem is, I don't think that downtown can be dependent upon transitory rich people from the suburbs.
It has to be.
No,
it has to be.
No,
half of your revenue is sales tax revenue, and you're going to get more of it when people are going to theater, nice restaurants, all that stuff.
But how come the assumption is it's only the rich people that can deliver that? And that's the thing that I'm looking at. Is it
because poor people don't go to the theater?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Do they? With
Yes.
all the extra income that poor people have, they go to the theater.
How are you defining poor? I mean, the thing is, and the other part is,
by definition, you have money to be able to spend on frivolous things like going to a concert or a theater show. If you are barely getting by, if you are by definition poor, you don't have the money to be able to do that. And the city of Denver it needs that. You can't have a city. Their own budget is restricting on this. And the point I'm making is not rich people versus poor people. The point I'm making is that the very thing they need to do in order to have the money to dive into the special projects their bleeding hearts want to provide for people, they're not doing. And rich people are going to continue to stay out of the city of Denver.
Now, in the back of my mind, I'm hoping that everybody, all my punk friends and aficionados, in the back of my mind are hearing the chorus to the Dead Kennedy song, Kill the Poor. That's what I'm hearing. I'm just hearing that they have no value. And the issue for me is that...
No!
Wait, hang on. I understand, but what I'm looking at is you're saying they can't go down. People that would be qualified as poor or people that aren't necessarily rich wouldn't be able to go to shows and wouldn't be able to go to theater and things like that. I went to a show last Friday. Tickets were $22.50. That's not expensive. And same thing as far as movie theater tickets and going down to restaurants. If you have a restaurant, if you're in the realm of an Elway's or a Shanahan's, yeah, that's rich people, but the vast majority of the restaurants subsist based on middle income. And that's what you should be targeting. I disagree with the idea that we need to target the rich people to come downtown. There aren't enough rich people in Colorado to sustain the tax revenue that you need. You need the middle income, and you need some of that poor. And also, who are the people that are going to be living downtown? Most of the time, it's going to be middle income and poor. You're going to have a couple of high rises that are going to be very expensive.
You're okay,
but it's not the poor. It's not rich
Billy,
people.
You think that the city of Denver can thrive on the tax revenue of the poor?
I said middle income and poor.
How about the middle income? How about the middle income?
Yeah.
You think the city of Denver can thrive, achieve all of its little progressive beliefs, have a flourishing city purely on the tax revenue of the poor and middle class?
Not purely. And that's what I'm asking you, is because you seem to say that the only way that Denver can make this is deriving the income purely from the rich. And what I mean by that is that's the argument that I seem to hear in some ways based on tax revenue larger, both in the Democrats and the Republicans, because Democrats say what we have to do is soak the rich and tax the crap out of them in order to make the revenue that we need to. And what I'm hearing from you is that the problem is we need to clean up the city, but we also need to tax and make sure the rich spend more. So maybe what we do is we increase the sales tax on them.
I'm not talking about increasing the sales tax. I'm talking about pure revenue. Okay. If the city of Denver, half of it comes in off of sales tax, and rich people in Colorado want nothing to do with this city. They don't want to go down. They don't want to have their businesses there. They don't want their restaurants there. They're afraid of the crime issues. All right. Denver itself is having to trim its budget because they don't have revenue coming in anymore. So what do they do with their budget to address this problem? Come up with progressive special interest spending projects.
So, got a question for you. So when we have a run of something like Hamilton, they'll go for 10 days down at DPCA.
Yes.
What percentage of that audience do you believe is rich that shows up because those things sell out every single performance? What percentage of that audience is rich?
Probably a good percentage, because I can't even afford those tickets.
No, I'm looking at what
percentage.
I don't
know. I have no idea.
Well, then how?
But don't you want them?
But hang on a sec.
Don't you want like a thriving theater industry? And believe me, if you don't have extra money to spend, you're not going to it.
Hang on a sec, though. This is the problem I have. You have no idea. You you can't even come up with a number of what percentage of the people inside the audience are rich, but you seem to assume they all are because they're going. And that's the problem I have is
because, Bill, by definition, they have excessive money to be able to spend on the theater.
What do you mean
that makes them a rich person.
What do you mean by excessive?
Excess money.
Well, that doesn't.
Sorry,
just having
excess money to be able to spend. You have excess money to be able to spend on a theater. If you're a poor person, you don't have that excess money.
Just because someone spends something on going to Disneyland or going to the theater or going to a concert doesn't mean they're necessarily rich, nor do they have a pile of excess money. I know people that have saved up for years in order to see a particular theater show or in order to take a trip. Those people aren't rich, but they did still make that purchase. They still have the ability. Also,
you want them coming to the city.
Middle income, but that's not the rich people you were talking about. And
you're getting hung up on the definition of rich and poor. Yeah, I'm talking about people who have money to do this.
Yes, no, I'm absolutely getting hung up on the definition of rich and poor because people that have money to do that are also middle income. And some of the people that are going to live downtown by definition are poor.
You want their money coming into the city of Denver, and they're not coming into the city of Denver.
But your argument and your premise you started with was that we don't have enough of the rich, and I'm saying that's
and
myopic
those are
and
people who have excess money
but it's
to be able to go downtown.
They are not the only
ones. You're missing the point, Bill.
No, you're missing the point.
No. The point being, the city of Denver has to have those people that have excess money, whether or not they're rich or poor or middle class. Does not matter. It's the people who have the money to go to a theater play you'll want coming into your city. They're not. They're not coming into the city. And rather than addressing that problem, we have $23 million going into temporary rent assistance utility programs. All right. Man, we've had Gary's been on the line for a while. Let's get to the phone lines. And I've got a few reads to do here. I want to talk to you about our good friends over at Colorado Christian University, who tomorrow are hosting the 48th Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, and his wife, former Second Lady Karen Pence. In partnership with the Centennial Institute and CCU President Eric Hogue, this event offers a unique opportunity to engage in conversation with Vice President Pence, one of America's most dedicated public servants, sharing his insights on the future of the conservative movement. Be among the first to experience the new Armstrong Center as CCU launches its President Speaker Series on this historic occasion. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. Limited tickets are available for Breakfast with Karen Pence. In fact, they're out of those tickets now, but you can watch the entire event online. Go to ccu.edu/Pence. You can watch it right there, ccu.edu/Pence, and watch this important conversation. Mike Pence tomorrow at CCU, by the way, we'll be out there. So,
yeah.
What is he going to say about Trump and the future of the Republican Party?
It'll be interesting.
I don't know. All right, we'll get to the phones here in a second. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Joe Biden and Donald Trump met Wednesday.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
At this hour, I'm Christina Weil in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Joe Biden and Donald Trump met Wednesday in a historic Oval Office meeting where the two talked about engaging in a smooth transition, with Biden telling Trump he will do everything they can to make sure he's accommodated.
Thank you. Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So good. Welcome back.
And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. And a transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
President Donald Trump's election win is bringing in a new outlook for mortgage rates even before he gets back to the White House. The president campaigned on a promise to make home ownership more affordable by lowering mortgage rates through policies aimed at knocking out inflation. Trump has said the first step in bringing inflation down from the historic highs the nation experienced during the Biden-Harris administration is through energy, campaigning on his popular phrase, drill, baby, drill. Experts believe that Trump's policies will have a major impact in turning the economy around and making life more affordable for American citizens. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking about the Denver City budget, and yes to the text messages. Jeff, stop yelling. Jeff, the term you're looking for is disposable income. Thank you, 8422. Denver, in this article, talking about the budget out of the Denver Post, talks about how the city is struggling because it gets half of its revenue from sales tax. Okay, so it has to have people visiting the city of Denver. You are a city that's crumbling if you don't, okay? They then go on to list all the spending priorities of this budget, and it's just all progressive special interest handouts for like East Coast Avenue bus rapid transit lines, temporary rent utility assistant programs, $1.1 million to the budget to support grants available to local businesses impacted by infrastructure projects. And people with disposable income, which are absolutely critical, have sent a message that the city of Denver is not safe. They don't feel comfortable being there. You have to have a city where women in fur coats dropping $1,000 at Elway's are walking around 16th Street Mall. The Brown Palace is struggling. Nobody wants to go down there anymore. So rather than addressing those issues and getting people with disposable income down to the city, they're just giving money away to special interest programs. Let's go to phone lines. Gary, Denver. Good morning, Gary. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Oh, hi, Jeff and Bill. Yeah, I've been waiting for this topic because, whenever I want to laugh, I tune into Channel 8 and watch the city council meetings. And you understand all the ridiculousness when you see the composition of the city council. I mean, they're just a bunch of idiots, with the exception of Kevin Flynn, who, by the way, was the only dissension on basic income. And also, the ballot measure I was following was 2R, which was the increase in sales tax for affordable housing that would have brought in $100 million for 40 years. 40 years. And by my math, that's $4 billion. And we shot it down, thank God.
Barely, by like a percentage point.
Yeah, but $100 billion or $100 million per year for 40 years. And, Mayor Johnson was patting himself on the back because he said this year's budget only went up 0.4% from last year's budget, and it's the lowest of all time. But here's the news flash. Their deficit spending, they went into the reserve by $60 million. They're required to hold a reserve of 15%, and they reduced it to 12%. And they're going to have to pay that $60 million back in 2026.
Wow.
So, I've been the director of budgeting for Fortune 500 companies, and I can tell you what they were going to do. They were going to pay back that $60 million by playing games with that $100 million that they were going to receive next year. And they'd say things like, well, we have it in a separate account and we're not, backfilling. But you know what? There are ways to do that and ways to allocate people and projects to that $100 million.
I mean, Gary, you're exactly right. And I appreciate your call so much. I want to ask you this. Look, I don't mind if the city of Denver wants to spend money on progressive plans, okay? You should have so much money that you can go spend money on your temporary rent utility assistance program. You're not getting there. And in fact, you're cutting out your own legs from beneath you by not prioritizing the safety and security of people with disposable income. If a smart mayor would sit down and go, I want this city so dang safe that women with pearls and diamonds and fur coats can walk around the Brown Palace and go out to the 16th Street Mall and enjoy dinner, because when we do that, the people with disposable income come to our city, they spend the money in our city, and then I have the revenue to be able to do my progressive special interest programs. Instead, they're not spending any of their money to do that, and the city of Denver continues to struggle.
You're right. And Jeff, I worked downtown for 20 years up until 2020 when COVID hit, and the city's in denial. I believe the biggest part of the downturn in tax revenue being generated from downtown is everyone's remote working. Yeah. I'm remote working. I've been for 4 years, and I don't intend on going back. And downtown just needs to accept that reality.
Yeah, I think you're right, Gary. I think you've hit the nail on the head that Denver's downtown scene is struggling with the idea that it is no longer the majority of the office space. And in some cases, if you're looking at companies moving down there, They're looking at a higher cost per square foot, so it's a detriment to try to get down there. And then you've got parking and everything else, not to mention the impression that it's a crime-ridden and no fun to go there. I think you're exactly right that Denver is still rapidly struggling with what to do with empty office space that used to derive so much revenue, because especially you look at the lunch traffic and early dinner traffic, the majority of that came from office space traffic. It came from people that were already down there either eating before going home or eating lunch.
And you know what I'm waiting for? One of the things I'm waiting for Trump to do is he's going to lower the hammer when he starts to punish states and cities that are sanctuary cities and stops sending the dollars back to our state and our city. And I hope he does that, because that's the only way. It may not work, but I think Mayor Johnson needs to be punished in that manner.
That is going to be a big X factor, Gary. Really appreciate the call.
Thanks for the call.
We'll continue with our calls, but I wanted to talk to you about my good friends over at QC Kinetics, especially if you're getting into the fall and those aches and joints and pain coming through all that. It really does affect the ability to live the life you want to live. Maybe you want to run around with the grandkids. Maybe you want to get up skiing this year. Maybe you want to be out hunting right now, but you can't do it because of some joint pain. The last thing you want to do is jump into that type of surgery or get addicted to painkillers. There's an actual process that heals that. Joel in our office here is a client of QC Kinetics. They are bringing about relief for him to the point where he's playing more golf than he ever has before. So don't run down this path of surgery and medication. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative cellular treatments for joint pain. This is an all-natural approach that harnesses your body's own healing properties to treat the root cause of your arthritic pain. Everybody's talking about it. Now the protocols developed are life-changing for so many people. Yes, you can have real lasting relief from chronic joint pain without drugs, without surgery, and without downtime. Discover your options with advanced regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. The consultation is absolutely free. Give them a call, 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986, or visit qckinetics.com. Let's go to Jay Sterling. Good morning, Jay. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Well, good morning to you guys.
What's on your mind?
Okay?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you.
I got a quick question for you. Have either one of you worked for a poor person? Because I never have. I mean, I've been self-employed a lot, but, you know, we can't criticize the rich because I've never worked for a poor person, Jeff.
Well, I think we can criticize the rich. I think that's fair enough to criticize them. And I understand what you're saying about that, Jay. The issue that I've got with the idea is that we assume the rich people are always making, one, the best choices with their money, two, choices that are going to benefit anybody other than themselves. And we've seen, I believe, over the course of history, that's not the case at all. And I can point back to recently, previous Trump administration, when he did the tax cuts for corporations. There were billions of dollars in tax cuts that were given to the corporations.
That also,
and the majority.
For a minute on that.
But
that also created more jobs. Are you self-employed now, or do you work for a company?
Jay, what happened though with those tax cuts? They didn't create more jobs. What they did is they did stock buybacks. The overwhelming majority of that money went back into stock buybacks to the company. So what it means is when those companies were given the tax credits by the Trump administration, they didn't invest in capital expenses. They didn't invest in employees. They didn't hire more employees. They didn't give the employees more revenue. They didn't give the employees a cut on healthcare benefits. They didn't do any of that.
So
what they did is they gave themselves more money. They gave themselves a raise because the stock buyback increased the valuation of their compensation. They took those tax cuts and gave themselves a raise. They didn't hire.
Started a company. If you yourself, hang on with me here.
Yeah.
If you started a company of your own and you were self-employed, it's your business to run however you would like to. Now, that's the entrepreneurship of America.
Yes, but what we don't see is this gratitude and this ability where they're looking to make sure that all the boats rise. And that's the fallacy, I believe, in the idea that because the idea that I hear is if we just give all the money to the rich people, they'll tell us best how to spend it. No, they'll keep it all for themselves. So I disagree with the premise
It's your
that the
company.
best way we can do with the money.
So you want the government to tell somebody that starts a local family restaurant, like whatever you want to call it, a breakfast inn, and if somebody starts a restaurant, you want the government to be able to tell them how they spend their money?
Nope, never
and how
said
much
that.
they keep and how they spend money on whether how much steak they buy or how much biscuits and gravy that they buy or how much you want them to be able to tell
Jay,
them
never
how
said
to
that.
run their business.
No,
They're
Jay, I never,
business has to make a
Jay, I never
profit.
said that. I never said that. But but what I did say is that this idea that the rich want to share their largesse with the rest of the employees and the working scruff is not true.
So how much of your paycheck do you give away?
Sorry, he asked you a question, Bill. Sorry,
I can't hear.
question.
My audio cut off. I have no idea what you were saying.
He
I
asked
lost
how
everything.
much of your paycheck do you give away?
Depends on what do you mean by give away. How do
Give
define
away? You don't understand
Yeah.
that? You passed second grade. Give away?
I'm sorry. Jay, I appreciate this and I like when you call, but when we turn this into personal and you're going to make this a personal attack, I'm not playing that. I mean, if we want to play second grade insults, we certainly can. The idea of giveaway can be defined differently. You can look at charitable contributions. You can look at taxes being given away to something else. And guess what? When my kids come up to me and ask me for extra money, I'm giving it away. So how that's defined can be different. I was trying to have a conversation with you. I'm not going to play let's insult each other, because if we want to do that, I can spend the next 20 minutes and it's not going to end well.
I want to get back to the original point of the Denver city budget. They are suffering. The budget is being tightened because people are not going to the city. The people with disposable income need to go to the city in order for the city to do all of its special progressive programs. And in their budget, they are not devoting their ideas and passions and priorities to solving that problem. Instead, what you get from the Denver Post coverage is all the money just going into progressive special programs, not actually solving the problem that they're dealing with. We'll get to the phone calls in a second, but people that are solving a very serious problem, advanced hair restoration. Look, I've had family members get their hair done with advanced hair restoration when they had to enter the dating pool a little bit later in life. And it brought back so much energy, youthfulness. It helped them bigly. And for some of us, it's happening. Your hair's thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity is lost altogether. Well, I've got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment. One day that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. Look, with all the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions, they might help retain what you have. But what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently regrowing in specific areas? Well, from Advanced Hair state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe will your hair regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. We'll continue with the calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
$50 gift cards from the Butchery Restaurant in Arvada. Get them now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Denver's city budget, not really doing anything to encourage people with disposable income to come down. Rod Littleton, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Morning, guys. Yeah, I worked security for RTD for 6 years. My wife used to ride light rail downtown to and from work, loved it until it got uncomfortable and she felt unsafe. I can tell you, working security is not being upheld like it needs to. That's why people are going down. They don't want to ride that anymore. That's why they lost a lot of people on the train. If you ride a train and you're accosted by or harassed, whatever, by people looking to either intimidate you, scare you, or rip you off, why would you get on there?
It's exactly right. Man, Rod, great call. Really appreciate your experience on that. We're just wrapping up the show here, but
yeah, call us again.
Man, that type of experience is exactly right. All right, if you missed the show, go to 710.